Chapter 1292. 30 minutes later, Lin Jun's divine power had returned to normal. It wasn't normal, but a weakened state. Using the sovereign's elixir before reaching the sovereign realm was considered a forced breakthrough. There would definitely be repercussions, and it would take a year to recover. This weakened state meant that his divine power was halved. Lin Jun, who was used to great power, couldn't get used to it. After his divine power was halved, he couldn't move unhindered in Fantasy Town. However, it wasn't a big problem. Now that he was in the zone, the Bao had been subdued, and the others had been eliminated. No one would disturb him. With only half of his strength left, Lin Jun cooperated with the demonic Bao and began a long battle. Although his power wasn't enough, Lin Jun's defense was still abnormally strong. It was impossible for any monster to kill Lin Jun quickly, even if it was a group. Moreover, the Bao's powerful firepower made up for Lin Jun's lack of power. With the two of them working together, the speed at which they killed monsters was very fast. Basically, every day, Lin Jun could get 50 to 80 energy pearls. In a month's time, Lin Jun would be able to collect double time, stacking fragments. However, Lin Jun wanted to buy more than that. Since he had a year's time, he would try his best to accumulate as many energy pearls as possible to prepare for cultivation. Outside the zone, the first wave of fights had basically ended. Those who were eliminated would enter again, those who won would start cultivating, and those who were eliminated would start fighting again. The cycle repeated itself. Fantasy Town was densely packed with monsters. It was enough for people to cultivate for a while. This was also beyond Sunflower Scar's expectations. At first, she wanted to force out the thief who was secretly taking advantage of her, but she didn't expect an Emperor-level monster to appear. If an Emperor-level monster beast had appeared on a monkey, chicken, dog, or pig, Sunflower Scar believed that the thief wouldn't have been able to hide. But he never expected that an Emperor-level monster beast would appear on the third wave, which was the tiger. Among the 12 zodiac beasts, the dragon and tiger were the strongest. The tiger's strength wasn't inferior to the dragon's, and its physical strength was even above the dragon's. It was only slightly weaker in terms of flying. After the Dominator-level tiger descended, people started to fight in different areas to avoid encountering the Tiger King. If they wanted to deal with this kind of Tiger King, they would need to gather everyone's strength and fight together. Fighting alone would be suicide. However, the beast tide had just begun. The task at hand was to collect the energy pearls and clean up the small demonic beasts. There was no chance for him to challenge the Tiger King, so he had to avoid it for the time being. As a result, Sunflower Scar's plan fell through. Although he was gnashing his teeth in anger, there was nothing he could do about it. He could only helplessly initiate the area contest and cultivate. However, the competition for her area was very simple. No one could take away her 80 times cultivation points. Anyone who tried to take advantage of her became the target of Sunflower Scar's anger and died a very ugly death. The situation in Fantasy Town gradually stabilized. Goldenrock, you have to participate in this operation. Since Sunflower Scar voluntarily gave up his points to launch the Dark Tide, we can't give him another chance to turn things around. Purple Xinghe, who was ranked 3rd, was especially enthusiastic. He contacted Patriarch Goldenrock in the Dimensional Universe. They were in a group chat. Not only were there Patriarch Goldenrock and Purple Xinghe, but there were also Patriarch Sealing Blade, Skywalker, Mountain Stone, and other super experts ranked in the top 10. Everyone else felt that Sunflower Scar should be eliminated. Only Patriarch Goldenrock hadn't said anything, which made them feel uncertain. Patriarch Sealing Blade also joined the ranks of persuasion. Old Brother Goldenrock, you are the strongest person here. It can be said that the only one qualified to compete with you for the God Crystal is Sunflower Scar. We are still a bit lacking. This time, we don't want to compete with you for the God Crystal. Our main goal is to band together and defeat this woman. Our hope is actually the next time the Eternal Mountain descends. There is no fixed time for the Eternal Mountain to descend. Whenever a ruler died and the ruler god Crystal returned to the primal chaos, the Eternal Mountain would descend in the Dark Light realm. In history, there are cases where the Eternal Mountain would descend 3 times a year. However, there were also cases where it wouldn't descend once in 100 million years. These pseudo-rulers cultivated here all day long in order to squeeze into the top 30 and participate in the competition for the ruler god crystal. Their goal was to become a supreme ruler. Patriarch Sealing Blade was originally called Patriarch Skyblade. However, after his battle with Patriarch Golden Rock, he changed his name to Patriarch Sealing Blade. Skywalker, Mountain Stone, and the others also expressed their opinions. In short, everyone's opinion was basically the same. Sunflower Scar was too fierce and too strong. She was a formidable opponent. If they could eliminate her, then there was no need to be polite. After being persuaded by everyone, Patriarch Golden Rock finally spoke. What's your plan? It's very simple. Since we have the advantage in numbers, we just need to crush her with our strength. There's no need for any schemes. We just need to kill Sunflower Scar and leave the town. Then, we'll leave the town and kill her body outside. Everything will be over. After Purple Shinga finished speaking, everyone nodded. This was the simplest, most practical, and most unsolvable plan. I agree with old brother Purple Shinga. Although it's a pity to kill this woman, no one would dare to keep such a tigress by their side. It is indeed a pity. However, compared to being a ruler, it's not on the same level. If I were a ruler now, I would be willing to let her warm my bed. You people have lived for so many years. Why are you still so lustful? You really make this old man despise you. These people let out a burst of mischievous laughter. Any man would understand. In front of others, they were high and mighty pseudo-rulers. However, in the same realm, they were normal people. After a while, Patriarch Golden Rock said, I agree with your plan. However, in my opinion, you guys should be enough to deal with Sunflower Scar. It doesn't matter if I participate or not. However, I still promise you that if something unexpected happens, I won't stand by and do nothing. If you can deal with it yourselves, then I'll watch the show. Hearing Patriarch Golden Rock agree, the others all cheered. As long as he agreed, they could take care of the rest. There's one more thing. Don't rush to make a move now. This time, the Emperor-level monster beast is the Tiger King. It's very powerful. When we kill the Tiger King, we'll need to borrow Sunflower Scar's strength. It won't be too late to turn hostile after this matter is over. Hearing Patriarch Golden Rock's words, the others all nodded. What he said made sense. Killing the Tiger King was inseparable from Sunflower Scar. When this matter was over, they would put the bow away and cook the hound when the hares were dead. Chapter 1293. Once the winners of those battles were determined, a year's worth of cultivation ended. In this year, nearly half of the demon beasts in Fantasy Town had been cleared, but it was still not to the point where there was no obstruction. Many people started the second battle. The real battle with the demon beasts should be next year. When these people started the second battle, Lin Jun had not finished collecting energy beads. In a year, Lin Jun's speed of collecting energy beads was relatively slow in the beginning. Later on, he became more skilled in cooperating with the demon bow, and the speed of collection also increased. In the beginning, he could only collect a few dozen energy beads a day. Later on, he could collect more than 100 or even 200 energy beads a day. After a year, the number of energy beads in Lin Jun's hands had exceeded 60,000. After a year, Lin Jun's weakened period had also ended, and his divine power had returned to normal. After returning to normal, Lin Jun immediately activated Berserk mode and cooperated with the demon bow. The efficiency of killing increased by several times every day. At most, they could collect at least 1,000 energy beads a day. This time, the two of them worked together and even killed a king-level demon beast rabbit that entered their area. After killing the rabbit, they dropped more than 20 gold beads. This time, they obtained more than 2,000 energy beads. After another 10 days, there were no traces of demon beasts within a 100-meter radius of Lin Jun's area. At this moment, the number of energy beads in Lin Jun's hands had broken through the 100,000 mark. On this day, Lin Jun finally finished collecting energy beads. Arriving near the training area, Lin Jun first opened the Fantasy Town store. He wanted to exchange items. First, Lin Jun exchanged for double-stack cultivation shards and 2,000 energy beads. Unfortunately, each person could only exchange for one of these things. They could not even accumulate. Others could not even give them away. Lin Jun could only get one piece. After exchanging this, Lin Jun chose to exchange for the bluestone spear. The bluestone spear was worth 50,000 energy beads. Lin Jun had already set his eyes on the spear. 50,000 energy beads were gone in the blink of an eye, and the bluestone spear was in his hands. The spear was 7 meters long, and its body was round and smooth. There was a faint green light floating around it. Holding it in his hand, he felt a little cold. Lin Jun patted the body of the spear twice, causing it to tremble slightly. The elasticity was also excellent. Sure enough, there are all kinds of strange things in the boundless universe. There's actually this kind of strange stone that can be forged. Moreover, this kind of thing is not afraid of fire, electricity, or light. It is truly a strange object. After Lin Jun took the golden eagle sword, he repeatedly tried to cut it, but it could not hurt the bluestone spear at all. A top-grade equipment was indeed a top-grade equipment. It was not something that could be shaken by a high-grade equipment. After obtaining the azure stone spear, Lin Jun once again purchased the pointing star spear technique. The star spear art originated from a sovereign's inheritance, and its creator was the Overlord Sovereign. The Overlord's primary weapon was the spear. This star spear technique was his own creation, and it was divided into 7 stances. A spark of life, 2 moons in the sky illuminating the netherworld. 3 stars circled the road to the end of the world. It swept out in all directions, and the river of stars moved. 5 thunders collapse, doomsday arrives. 6 directions, universal collapse. 7 returns to 1 ends enmity. These 7 stances allowed the Overlord Sovereign to roam the universe unchallenged. Among the 81 sovereigns, the Overlord Sovereign was firmly in the top 5. A sovereign's battle technique was inconceivably powerful. Even the first stance was not something a pseudo-sovereign could block. There were not many pseudo-sovereigns who used spears. Spear techniques were difficult to cultivate, so most martial artists still use swords. Moreover, there was basically no one who could be as thorough as Lin Jun, who could lock another pseudo-sovereign's soul and help him collect energy pearls in the region battles. Thus, the pointing star's 7 stances had never been exchanged. After purchasing the spear and spear technique, Lin Jun felt relaxed. He had always wished to obtain a suitable spear, and today, his wish had finally come true. Although the sword technique was not bad, it was not as smooth as when he used the spear. After exchanging for these 3 items, Lin Jun only had enough energy pearls to exchange for one more item, which was the 7th floor's gene stock. Lin Jun had already thought about the gene stock he wanted to exchange for. He wanted to exchange for the mutated starry sky black tortoise gene. There were 4 sacred beasts in the world: azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise. The azure dragon was mighty, the white tiger was violent, the vermilion bird was agile, and the black tortoise was tough. The black tortoise was known for its defense. The main purpose of exchanging for the black tortoise gene was to toughen its skin. Lin Jun's defense was already outstanding. If he was at the godly king level, those godly kings would not be able to cause him any harm. However, among pseudo-sovereigns, those pseudo-sovereigns could still injure him through battle techniques and secret techniques. He already had an enormous amount of energy, as well as the armor's damage reduction. If he refined the black tortoise gene, his defense would at least double. This way, among pseudo-sovereigns, no one would be able to take Lin Jun's life. No matter how many people there were, Lin Jun would still have time to escape. Only with an invincible defense could one be in an invincible position. This kind of mutated starry sky black tortoise gene was not very popular. Very few people would take the initiative to cultivate it. This was because at the 7th level, as long as the first level was not 100% condensed, it would be impossible to take any more mutated genes. At the very least, according to Lin Jun's knowledge, he had never seen anyone who could complete every level of the mutated gene, except for himself. After making up his mind, Lin Jun used the remaining energy beads to exchange for the mutated starry sky black tortoise gene. After the exchange, his energy beads were completely used up. It's done. With a double stacking shard, 1 year of cultivation here is equivalent to 10,000 years. Let's see how much I can improve in this 10,000 years. After preparing everything and confirming that his condition was at its peak, Lin Jun gave the demonic bow an order. The order was very simple. It was for the demonic bow to commit suicide. The demonic bow had been enslaved by Lin Jun for a year, but he himself did not know. Once he left the fantasy town, his consciousness would also recover. At that time, he would probably hate Lin Jun to death. However, Lin Jun did not care. The demonic bow had already completed his mission. If he hated him, he would not be able to return to this area for revenge within a year. He could only wait for a year before he left. At that time, Lin Jun was confident that he would jump into the ranks of the pseudo-sovereigns. At that time, he would even less care about the demonic bow. The demonic bow received the order and immediately self-destructed without hesitation. His figure disappeared. After the demonic bow disappeared, the area contest finally ended. Lin Jun's contest might have taken the longest, slightly more than a year. A notification immediately came from the dimensional universe. The area contest has ended. Congratulations to Lin Jun for obtaining first place. You can now go to the 50 times cultivation spot to cultivate. The cultivation spot is officially activated. Countdown of 1 year. Begin. Lin Jun was right beside the cultivation spot. When he saw the cultivation spot flash with white light, he immediately sat on it and used the double stacking shard. The surrounding time suddenly became viscous and solidified. The flow of time was extremely slow. Lin Jun saw a speck of dust floating in the air. After a long time, it did not move forward even a millimeter. Chapter 1294. What kind of concept was 14,000 years? 3 times the history of human civilization. One could even experience the process of life's evolution. Lin Jun had lived 2 lives, but it only lived for 6 to 7,000 years. The amount of cultivation he had experienced this time was much more than what he had experienced in his 2 lives combined. If a martial artist didn't have the ability to bring his family and friends into the path of cultivation, then it was possible that by the end of his cultivation, even the planet of his hometown would have exploded, not to mention meeting his old friends. This was the price of cultivation, the sorrow of a martial artist. Lin Jun didn't have such worries now. His family and loved ones had already embarked on the path of cultivation. Everyone was above immortality, and they were all in very safe places. Therefore, he could cultivate and comprehend at ease without any distracting thoughts. The first thing he started was the condensation and fusion of the gene concentrate. After having the universe's origin in his body, this kind of fusion was no longer difficult for Lin Jun. It took him 3 years to complete the fusion. After 3 years, Lin Jun's body was already covered in dust. However, the moment the fusion was completed, there was still a faint flicker of light on the surface of his body. It was extremely obscure. On his skin, if one were to take a closer look with a microscope, they would be able to see layers of fine lines overlapping each other. The lines were very tight and distributed very logically. It was like the outer shell of the black tortoise, giving him an extremely strong defense. It could be said that if a piece of Lin Jun's skin was taken to Earth, or even in new territories, those cosmic countries with powerful technology wouldn't have the ability to destroy his skin. They wouldn't even be able to destroy a tiny bit of it. They wouldn't even be able to split a single cell. This was the difference between levels. Even a Divine King expert wouldn't be able to harm Lin Jun's body. Their attacks would only forcibly reduce a little of Lin Jun's energy. It's done. Although the 7 gene layer didn't increase my strength and speed, it gave me an extremely strong defense. The effect of this layer of black tortoise gene skin is even better than the mixed yuan armor. Lin Jun tested it a few times himself. In the end, after Crazy's calculations, it was confirmed that Lin Jun's black tortoise outer skin gave him 70% damage reduction, as well as twice the original defense. In addition to the mixed yuan armor's 50% damage reduction, this was 120% damage reduction. In addition to Lin Jun's current defense, there were far too few people who could effectively injure him, even pseudo-dominators. Moreover, Lin Jun's immortal body had a powerful recovery ability. This was Lin Jun's confidence. Phew. In terms of defense, I'm probably already at the peak of pseudo-dominator level. What I'm currently lacking is my killing power, attack power, and battle techniques. Being strong in defense and weak in offense isn't a long-term solution. At the very least, it doesn't have much of a deterrent effect on others. If I want to stand at the top of the pseudo-dominators, I still need to improve. After fusing with the Black Tortoise gene, Lin Jun's next step was to cultivate the fifth move of the layering battle technique. Outer Binding Seal. The Outer Binding Seal could increase one's attack power by 5 times. It was the backbone of the layering hand seals, as well as the dividing line. If one didn't learn this move, they wouldn't be considered a true beginner. Under normal circumstances, comprehending the Outer Binding Seal would take hundreds or thousands of years. However, Lin Jun didn't lack time at all. After 900 years, Lin Jun succeeded in comprehending it. After comprehending it, Lin Jun didn't test out the power of this move. There would be plenty of opportunities in the future for actual combat. What he needed to do next was the most difficult task, which was also the main goal of this seclusion. That was to break through to the late stage of High God. Lin Jun's current godly power was 783 million. Compared to other pseudo-dominators, he could barely be considered a first-rate expert. There was still a certain gap between him and first-rate experts, such as Sunflower Scar. His own godly power was the foundation. Lin Jun decided to break through to the late stage of High God and truly enter the top tier. As long as I enter the late stage of High God, I can truly stand firm among the pseudo-dominators. I won't have to fear anyone in this fantasy town. Entering the top 30 of the Divine Steel is just around the corner. After discarding all distracting thoughts in his mind, Lin Jun entered a long period of cultivation. 500 years was like mulberry fields and oceans. 5,000 years was like the changes in the human world. 10,000 years was a long wait that made one despair. Even for someone as strong as Lin Jun, when he went into seclusion for 10,000 years, his memories felt distant and blurry. Nothing in the outside world could affect him. He was immersed in his own world of cultivation. The sky was vast and the clouds were undulating. Later on, his movements even became somewhat mechanical. Out of instinct, when he felt that the energy in his body was insufficient, he would take out a godstone and swallow it to obtain more energy to continue his cultivation. One by one, the circulatory energy circulated in his body. Strands of godly power constantly gathered. A small puddle became a large puddle became a lake became a sea, and the sea became a boundless ocean. Cultivation was the accumulation of many little drops into an ocean. It was tenacious and indomitable. A wise guard fills the sea, and a foolish old man moves the mountain. These were not enough to describe the difficulty of cultivation, especially for Lin Jun's current realm. The time and energy consumed to advance from mid-stage High God to late-stage High God was more than the total amount of cultivation he had spent in his entire life. A whole 10,000 years. Lin Jun had already spent 11,000 years in this 50-fold cultivation, of which the time spent on cultivating the gene stock solution and the fifth move of the stacking battle technique was only 1,000 years. But to advance to late-stage High God, it took him 10,000 years. After 10,000 years, Lin Jun had somewhat forgotten his own name. However, he had not forgotten one thing: breakthrough. Needless to say, when the breakthrough came, Lin Jun felt a faint chill on his head. His whole body felt relaxed, and his dantian surged. Although it was only a small breakthrough, the changes it brought were still enormous. Advancing from early stage to mid-stage High God brought him an increase of 1.5 million. And the process of advancing to late-stage High God brought him an increase of 3 million. This increase caused Lin Jun's divine power to soar to 10.83 million. When he first saw Sunflower Scar, he estimated that Sunflower Scar's divine power was only a little more than 10 million. It might not even be as high as Lin Jun's current divine power. This breakthrough also meant that Lin Jun had officially entered the ranks of the top quasi-sovereigns. Following his breakthrough, the primal chaos lotus that his 8 divine clones had gathered once again received a huge upgrade. Previously, each of the 8 divine clones had 25 million divine power, totaling 10 million divine power. Now, each of them had 70 million divine power. His divine power had also increased to 13.6 million divine power. In addition to the 80% increase in his domain of divinity, Lin Jun's divine power had reached 44 million. When Lin Jun completed his breakthrough, Crazy told him something. Master, one ruler's god crystal brings you 50 million divine power. This is the biggest difference between quasi-sovereigns and sovereigns. If you can increase your divine power to more than 50 million before you enter the sovereign realm, then you won't be too far away from ordinary sovereigns. Chapter 1295. After breaking through, Lin Jun slowly opened his eyes. In front of him was a stagnant space, as well as time. He opened his eyes and closed them again. After a while, he came back to his senses. I am Lin Jun. Cultivating the late-stage high god was a huge breakthrough for Lin Jun. Among the pseudo-sovereigns, he was definitely at the top. 11,000 years have passed. There are still 3,400 years before this cultivation point ends. Lin Jun had already completed more than half of this cultivation goal. Next, he had one more thing to do, and that was to cultivate the pointed star spear art. After obtaining the peak grade weapon, the greenstone spear, Lin Jun's strength imperceptibly rose again. In order to fight against those powerful pseudo-sovereigns, cultivating a sovereign's battle skill was necessary. True peak pseudo-sovereigns would also cultivate sovereigns' battle skills. Only powerful battle skills could allow one's divine power to be maximized and be utilized. After calming down for a few days and stabilizing his realm at late-stage high god, Lin Jun began a new round of cultivation. In the single-person arena of the dimensional universe, in the dark starry sky, there were stars glowing in the distance. Planets were revolving. Lin Jun held the spear in one hand as he stood in the void of the universe. Master, everything is ready. You can start cultivating. However, I have to remind you that cultivating a sovereign's battle skill isn't that simple. First, you have to pass the sovereign's test. Too many people buy a sovereign's battle skill, but they can't cultivate it. If everyone can cultivate it as they wish, Master, you won't be able to survive in Fantasy Town. After saying that, Chris disappeared from Lin Jun's shoulder, leaving Lin Jun alone. Clenching the greenstone spear in his hand, Lin Jun opened the pointed star spear art's secret manual. The creator of this secret manual was called the Overlord Sovereign. He was almost invincible in the universe. Even among the 81 sovereigns, he was one of the top existences. The Sky Overlord. After cultivating for 24 billion years and becoming a sovereign, he combined his lifetime's understanding of the spear and created this stellar spear art. This spear technique has a total of 7 styles, and its power is boundless. I used this spear technique to defeat many sovereigns. Anyone who obtains my Point Star secret manual must remember this. My spear art is not something that anyone can practice. Those who do not have a strong will, those who do not have a strong aura, and those who are stupid will not be able to comprehend it. Only the truly strong, the overlord of the world, have the possibility of practicing it. Therefore, I have arranged a test for all of you to try. Now begin. Lin Jun had just seen this, and before he could mentally prepare himself, the entire environment suddenly changed. Below his feet was a shore, and in front of him was a vast ocean. The sea roared under the wind, setting off monstrous waves that were rushing towards the shore. This was a huge tsunami. Beside him, there was a group of people with blurred faces. Lin Jun didn't know who they were, but he instinctively felt that these people should be related to him. They weren't too important, but they weren't completely unimportant either. Lin Jun's current realm was the early stage of the Star Realm. The early stage of the Star Realm was when one had just broken through to the War God realm and formed a star core in their body. At this realm, escaping from a huge tsunami was no problem. Even if one entered the waves, they wouldn't be harmed. However, the people around him were just ordinary people. They definitely wouldn't be able to escape from such a huge tsunami. Save people or not? Save a few people or save everyone? It was probably beyond his power to save everyone, but if he didn't save them, he would definitely regret it. This was a difficult choice, and he didn't have much time to think about it. The people around him cried and howled. Some of them ran back futilely. Some of them tried to burrow into the sand in a panic, and some of them were simply dumbfounded. They stood there, too scared to move their legs. They could be friends, neighbors, or teachers and classmates. Lin Jun couldn't tell them apart for a moment. If the waves came crashing down like demons, he had to make a choice immediately. Lin Jun didn't realize that he was in an illusion, and he immediately moved. He didn't run away. Instead, he charged forward and attacked like lightning. Pa! Lin Jun grabbed a running little girl and threw her behind him. Pa! 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 The gravitational force of the star core in his body exploded. Lin Jun pulled some children, as well as women and old people, behind him as fast as he could. As for some young men, Lin Jun didn't care. He couldn't care at all because the waves were already in front of him. Lin Jun had a long spear in his hand. He didn't know what kind of spear it was. He held the spear horizontally, and all the strength in his body exploded. Immovable mountain. This was a battle technique that Lin Jun had comprehended countless years ago. At this moment, the long spear evolved into a spinning windmill that couldn't be splashed by water. Lin Jun had achieved the ability to be as immovable as mountains and rivers in his early years. Although the waves were fierce within Lin Jun's defense range, Lin Jun could still make it so that not a single drop of water would leak out. The only risk was that the huge impact of the waves might take his life. 20 seconds. My strength can only last for 20 seconds. If I can't save these people in 20 seconds, I will choose to give up. Rumble. The huge waves crashed down. Lin Jun also let out an angry roar. He protected the people behind him, spun his spear, lowered his waist, and sat in a horse stance. He had to kill his way out. Only when the seas are turbulent can the true colors of a hero be revealed. The people behind him revealed hopeful gazes as they looked at Lin Jun's back. The waves came crashing down and then turned into bubbles, vanishing into thin air. In the next second, Lin Jun had already returned to the dimensional arena. He had returned to the dark, starry sky. All the illusions had disappeared. At this moment, he finally understood what he had just experienced. As expected of a sovereign expert, he can actually easily bring people into an illusion. I actually didn't notice it. Just as Lin Jun was shocked, some words appeared on the star-pointing spear technique's secret manual. I'm very happy that you can make such a choice. Did I make the right choice? Lin Jun asked. Yes. At least from my point of view, you were right. First, you didn't choose to turn around and run away. This is a very important step. If you chose to run away, then you are an inhumane person. I won't pass my secret manual to you. Secondly, you chose the most suitable method to save the elderly, women, and children. As for those men, since you are a man, then face them yourself. This is a man's way of thinking. It suits my taste. Another point is your way of thinking. You aren't stupid enough to want to risk your life for these people. When you think that you can't do it, you'll choose to give up. If you choose to persist until the end, then you are a complete fool. Apart from increasing unnecessary injuries and deaths, you won't be able to change anything. Rational, calm, responsible, and not stupid. These are all important characteristics to become a tyrant. As long as you do a little less, then the secret spear technique you bought would have been wasted. Congratulations, you have passed the test. You can start cultivating now. Chapter 1296. After passing the Overlord's test, Lin Jun let out a long sigh of relief. Thankfully, it was the Overlord. If it had been a wretched Overlord, he would have bought this secret manual for nothing. An image of a person holding a spear appeared on the secret manual in front of him. What the person looked like wasn't important. What was important was the posture of the spear. This was a moving image. The posture of the spear was broken down into many different actions. The requirements for each action were extremely strict. There couldn't be the slightest deviation. If there was a slight deviation, the spear wouldn't be able to achieve the desired effect. In the end, it wouldn't be able to hit the target. Lin Jun narrowed his eyes slightly. Watching this blurry figure use a spear, his heart surging with emotion. He believed that he had a deep understanding of spear arts, but the Overlord's first move made Lin Jun sink into deep thought. This spear, it's so difficult. Not only does a spear strike have extremely strict requirements for the posture, but it also requires the gradual release of power, the precision of the angle, and the unity of the entire body's essence, energy, and spirit. Not a single one can be missing. For better or for worse, Lin Jun was a spear expert. He quickly saw through the mysteries of this spear. Seeing through was one thing, but to actually do it was an extremely difficult process. In the following days, Lin Jun cultivated in the dimensional arena's starry sky. The more he cultivated, the more he felt that this spear art was broad and profound. Those who are able to create Dominator rank battle skills are indeed heavenly geniuses. Although I've created some battle skills before, those battle skills aren't even at the Pseudo-Dominator rank. What I'm currently using are all other people's cultivation methods. The sword techniques Lin Jun had learned from the 4 great holy lands, plus his current spear techniques, were all created by other people. This made Lin Jun somewhat unwilling to accept. He also wanted to prove himself and create his own battle skills. In a battle between overlords, battle skills were extremely important. Those overlords had lived for countless years and knew the unique battle skills of other overlords like the back of their hand. They should be able to deal with them. If the difference in strength wasn't too great, then a unique battle skill, especially a new battle skill, would be the key to victory. However, it was still difficult for Lin Jun to create a Dominator rank battle skill. One had to know that these battle skills were created by Dominator rank experts. Pseudo-Dominator rank experts could only learn them. He had never heard of anyone creating them. This was only an idea at the moment, but it had already taken root in Lin Jun's heart. What he needed to do now was to quickly learn the Point Star Spear art. After being tempered by the universe's origin twice, Lin Jun's comprehension ability was unbelievably strong. From Chris, he learned that most people wouldn't be able to comprehend a sovereign's battle skill without spending tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years. Oftentimes, once a sovereign's battle skill was given to a pseudo-sovereign, they would spend the next billions of years learning it. The pseudo-dominators in Fantasy Town were like this. Every day, they focused on researching battle techniques. Even if they had cultivation points to speed up, their progress was still extremely slow. Lin Jun had been practicing this move for over 100 years. He was already familiar with all the moves and stances, and even used his essence, energy, and spirit very well. However, he was still unable to create the feeling in the picture. On this day, Lin Jun chose to rest. This was his cultivation path. When it was truly difficult to break through, he would change his mind. Chris, do you have anything to pass the time with? Chris searched the dimensional universe. Master, do you want to watch a movie? Movie. Lin Jun froze. He knew about movies. It was a form of entertainment in his hometown, the Common Era. They used filming to present all kinds of stories. Then let's watch it. What genre do you want to watch? War. Chris quickly found a bunch of movies for Lin Jun. Modern war, ancient war, and so on. In Lin Jun's eyes, these movies had many loopholes. Especially in the fighting scenes, there were too many useless tricks. They could clearly kill in one strike, but they kept fighting for a long time. In his opinion, the level of fighting was trash. Lin Jun didn't care about fighting. He wanted to watch other things. For example, the story, the spirit. He watched very quickly. After cultivating and slowing down time, his body's organs could adapt to all kinds of scenes. He sped up the movie 16 times, but it still felt a little slow. After watching one movie after another, Lin Jun finally saw a movie called Farewell, My Concubine. He didn't like watching fighting. It was a little fake. But Lin Jun was deeply shocked. After watching it, he turned off the movie and silently recalled it in his mind. Overlord, The reason why he is called Overlord is because of his imposing manner. Although the characters in the movie haven't reached the peak, that spirit is there. If not me, who else can? Since ancient times in the vast universe, there have been many people called overlords. Those with this title all have these characteristics. Suddenly, an idea flashed in his mind. Lin Jun suddenly stood up. I understand now. I was too focused on the use of my moves. I was too concerned about the details. Instead, I lost something fundamental. That is an absolute domineering aura. I can't have the slightest hesitation or pause. With a spear, I must destroy everything. Just like the martial intent that I comprehended in the past. Immovable as a mountain, no matter how strong the enemy is, they cannot shake me. Invincible, no matter how tough the opponent is, they must be broken. I already have an absolute defense. I can throw away all worries and advance with indomitable will. Because he hadn't used a spear for a long time, Lin Jun had even forgotten about his martial intent. But now that he thought about it, martial intent was the most precious thing. No matter what, he could use it. Standing in the starry sky, the invincible martial intent rose up from Lin Jun's body. In front of him was a starry sky. Voila! The blue stone spear in his hand shook, his eyes as firm as a wolf's. Point star is to use the fastest and strongest spear style to kill the stars like lightning. That's all. Everything else can be disregarded. Only then can one display the true essence of a spear. Ha ha ha, I understand. Stepping into the starry sky, Lin Jun took a step forward. The void cracked beneath his step. The long spear in his hand was like a rainbow that pierced through the sun. It flashed towards the distant stars. In the virtual world, the target was a giant star that was dozens of times larger than the sun. If it were Lin Jun in the past, he would have been able to destroy this star. But it wouldn't have been easy. But now, with a single spear strike, a beam of light shot out from the void, directly piercing through the star. Blazing hot energy detonated within the star, causing a loud explosion in the universe. The giant star under Lin Jun's spear exploded. It wasn't pierced through or destroyed, but directly pierced through and exploded. The fireball in front of him was like an invincible nuclear bomb, exploding with the power to destroy the heavens and earth. Of course, in front of Lin Jun, who had comprehended the true essence of light and fire, this didn't cause any harm. He stood in the void, allowing the billowing heat waves to sweep over him. Chapter 1297. After completing the first form of the spear art, Lin Jun's cultivation became much simpler. Although it was simple, it was only in terms of concept. Every move after that was several times more complicated and required even more time. However, Lin Jun still had time. He could slowly cultivate and comprehend it bit by bit. In the 11,100th year of seclusion, he comprehended the first form. This move was the foundation of the Overlord spear art. If he couldn't comprehend it, no matter how well he learned it, he wouldn't be able to use the true Overlord spear art. At best, it would be a pseudo-dominator battle skill. In the 11,500th year of seclusion, he learned the second form, twin moons illuminating the netherworld. This move was the evolved version of the first form. It was even more outstanding, and the gap between exerting force was also very particular. Lin Jun failed time and time again. It took him 400 years to completely grasp it. In the 12,200th year of seclusion, Lin Jun comprehended the third form, 3 stars circling the ends of the earth. This move was even more difficult. It took a full 700 years for Lin Jun to grasp it. As for the cultivation of the fourth move, it took Lin Jun 2,000 years of time. For directions, sweeping stars moving. This move was even more suitable for group battles. Its power was even greater. Learning this move made Lin Jun feel so tired that he wanted to vomit blood. Finally, in the 14,200th year of seclusion, he learned the true essence of this move. At this time, it was almost time for Lin Jun to enter this training area. There were still 200 years left. During this period of time, Lin Jun knew that no matter how hard he worked, he wouldn't be able to break through and learn the fifth form. Without 5,000 years, he wouldn't be able to master that move. In the last 200 years, Lin Jun didn't want to waste it. He chose to learn the sixth form of the overlaying 9 seals technique, inner binding seal. The first 3 forms of the 9 seals technique were relatively simple. The middle 3 forms were more difficult. Ordinary pseudo-dominators would at most be able to learn the 6th form. Most would learn the 4th and 5th forms. As for the 7th move, Wisdom Fist Seal, according to the overlaying 9 seals technique, it was a move used by rulers. Lin Jun had already studied the 9 seal technique for many years. This technique wasn't as difficult to comprehend as a sovereign battle skill. At the very least, the first 6 stances couldn't be considered a sovereign battle skill. In 150 years, Lin Jun had completely mastered the formation move, the inner bound seal. After learning this move, the rest of the time was much easier. Lin Jun stopped learning new things and began to integrate what he had learned. For example, how to superimpose the 9 seals technique on top of a combat skill, how to switch between moves more smoothly. Lin Jun made rapid progress as he spent every day like this. While he was cultivating, he was also waiting. He was waiting for the final time to pass, waiting for the battle to end. Although it was said to be 50 years, in fact, there was only less than a day left. The time for him to go out was almost up. In Fantasy Town, 2 years had passed since the beast tide. In these 2 years, the pseudo-rulers in the town worked hard and slowly cleared out many beasts. Although the absolute number of beasts far exceeded the pseudo-rulers, their intelligence was still inferior. Moreover, the pseudo-rulers could continuously obtain energy pearls to exchange for high-grade equipment. If they failed, they could enter again. It was like a foolish old man moving a mountain. Although the mountain was big, it wouldn't increase. Eventually, it would be dug out. In 2 years, 90% of the beasts in the town had been cleared out. Now, there were only a few beasts left. Most of the places were hard to find. Only the area in the middle of the town was still occupied by a large group of demonic beasts. With the Tiger King of the 12 Zodiac as the leader, there were also a few king-level beasts gathered here. For example, the Dragon King, the Monkey King, the Ox King, the Snake King, etc. With no more beasts around, the pseudo-rulers gradually began to gather in the center of the town. It had to be known that the remaining beasts here were basically all elite beasts. Killing one of them was very rewarding. The fantasy town's good treasures were constantly attracting people's attention. If they missed this village, they wouldn't be able to find another one. Everyone was dreaming of being able to kill the Dominator-level Tiger King and obtain a generous reward. However, not everyone had the chance. Some people knew that their strength was lacking, so they didn't gather in the center of the town. Instead, they wandered around the outskirts, looking for fish that slipped through the net. Of course, there were also people who wanted revenge. For example, Demon Bao and Bonehead. The period of time in the area competition was an unforgettable humiliation for Demon Bao and Bonehead. They had actually fallen at the hands of someone who was at the bottom of the rankings. This was simply a great humiliation, especially the Demon Bao. Not only did he fail, but he was also forcibly controlled by Lin Jun's psychic force for an entire year. He was forced to be Lin Jun's dog for an entire year. That period of time was something he absolutely did not wish to recall. After coming out, Demon Bao and Bonehead contacted each other and decided to take revenge on Lin Jun. They didn't even enter a new battle. Instead, they calculated the time Lin Jun would cultivate. They knew that he would leave the area competition today. Demon Bao and Bonehead each found a few helpers. They were all ranked near the top of the pseudo-dominator rankings. They came to the east of town, to where Lin Jun was cultivating. It's here, General. This is the location of the area competition. Right now, the area within 100 meters is covered by energy, so we can't enter. Bonehead pointed in the direction of Lin Jun. Beside him was a tall and sturdy pseudo-dominator. On this person's heaven steel, there was a huge number 68 written on it, proving his ranking on the heaven steel. His name was General, and he was very famous in the entire fantasy town. A person ranked in the top 100 should have appeared in the town at this moment to encircle and annihilate those elite monsters. But today he had followed the Demon Bao and Bonehead here. General glanced at him indifferently. How much longer until it ends? Demon Bao looked at the time. General, it's about to end. There's still 1 minute left. Okay, then let's try to leave in 1 minute and 5 seconds. You all know that I need to obtain energy pearls to exchange for items. Only then will I have the qualifications to compete for the top 30. Otherwise, in Big Brother Purple Shinga's eyes, I'm afraid I'm worthless. Patriarch Golden Rock, Purple Shinha, and the other top figures all had subordinates ranked in the top 100. Their goal was to reach the top 30. Once they entered the top 30, when the Eternal Mountain descended, their mission would be to protect their big brother and help him obtain the Dominator God Crystal. Today, Purple Shinha had sent a general to help Bao Yao and Bonehead because Bao Yao and Bonehead had already submitted to Purple Shinha. Seeing that the two of them still had some potential, Purple Shinha had decided to help them deal with a person called Lin Jun. Demon Bao hurriedly said to General, Big Brother General, as long as you're here, that Lin Jun is dead for sure. Of course, if it weren't for Big Brother Purple Shinga's orders, killing someone ranked in the top 3 or 400 would dirty my hands. General's domineering aura leaked out. He didn't put Lin Jun in his eyes at all. 5 seconds. For seconds. 3 seconds. 2 seconds. 1 second. Time's up. As the demonic Bao's countdown ended, the energy barrier around Lin Jun's area dissipated, revealing the situation inside. Chapter 1298. The light screen opened, and these people swarmed to the 50X training spot. They stopped around the house. Bonehead and Demon Bao volunteered to kick the door. The general raised his hand. What are you kicking the door for? There's no need to be so gentle to someone who's about to die. Saying this, a ball of energy exploded from the general's hand. It turned into a shockwave and directly hit the house. The houses in Fantasy Town were relatively sturdy. Otherwise, they would have been razed to the ground in the battle. Normal pseudo-dominators would have to spend a lot of effort to destroy them. After all, they only had the strength of a war god here. However, when the general attacked, he immediately saw the difference. The entire house exploded under his attack. Smoke and debris filled the sky. The house collapsed, leaving behind only a few broken walls. In the middle was the 50X training spot. There was still a white light on the spot, but there was no one there. Ha! Boss General is mighty. To deal with someone like Lin Jun, we have to let him know how powerful we are. General, Lin Jun couldn't have been killed by you, right? Why can't I see his shadow? He must have been killed. I'm ranked 220. Under such an attack, there's no chance of survival. Strong. Too strong. Flattery filled the surroundings. The general's face was slightly pleased. He was confident that Lin Jun couldn't have withstood such an attack. Let me see how far this Lin Jun's ranking has dropped. Dying like this is too easy for him. Demon Bao went to look for the Heavenly Monument rankings in the dimensional universe. He wanted to see the results. At this time, the general's face suddenly changed. He said gloomily, "No need to trouble yourself. Lin Jun didn't die because my points haven't changed." The smiles on everyone's faces stiffened. The general attacked with full confidence, but in the end, he didn't kill the opponent. This was a bit awkward. Bonehead was behind the general. He hesitated and said, "This brat must have known that we were coming and hid in advance. He wasn't even at the training spot." Yes. Everyone look around and see where he hid. Could it be that this brat hid at the edge of the area and ran away when we came in? Everyone was making wild guesses, but the general's expression softened a little. If that was the case, he wouldn't lose face. But just as they were about to search their surroundings, something strange happened. Above the 50X cultivation point, a hand seemed to reach out from the void. His hand grabbed onto something and slowly lifted it up, revealing Lin Jun's face. On his forehead was a symbolic sun, moon, and stars ring. His eyes were as bright as the stars in the night sky. On his angular and handsome face, there was a trace of mockery. First, it was the face, then the body. Finally, the entire person seemed to have appeared from another space. Hula. Lin Jun stood up, and an astonishing aura rose from his body, making several people near him involuntarily take a step back. Lin Jun, "You cunning bastard, you actually escaped into another dimension." Bonehead roared loudly, recalling the scene of Lin Jun teleporting. This brat's attainment in space was simply unbelievable. Lin Jun raised his hand, and a cloak suddenly appeared in his hand. He quickly kept it and stretched. "What do you mean by escaping into another dimension? I was just hiding here to cultivate. Could it be that any of you felt the fluctuations in space?" The general's expression turned even uglier. It was fine if Lin Jun escaped into another dimension, but there were no fluctuations in space around him. This meant that his attack just now didn't cause any damage to his opponent. The general couldn't accept this result. "Nonsense. You must have set up layers of defense just now, right? You can't be safe and sound." The general, who came with a strong momentum, was a little mentally unbalanced at this moment. Lin Jun's gaze fell on the general, and the corner of his mouth curled up. "Were you the one who disturbed my cultivation just now? I can't say that your attack was completely useless. At the very least, the dust almost blinded my eyes." As he spoke, Lin Jun shook his hair, and some dust really did fall off. "Lin Jun, you little brat." The general, who felt insulted, was furious. "Speak properly. Clean your mouth." Lin Jun suddenly roared, and the general couldn't help but be stunned. "You're looking for death." Before the general could speak, one of the quasi-dominators who came with him, ranked 31st, couldn't take it anymore. When the big brother was insulted, the little brother would definitely do his best. Moreover, he didn't believe what Lin Jun said. This guy ranked 400th was completely lying. Posturing, he raised the upper-grade weapon in his hand and chopped down fiercely at Lin Jun. The general stood there without moving. He wanted to use his subordinate's performance to figure out Lin Jun's depth. A person ranked 31st on the heavenly monument, such a strong person could be said to be an absolute tyrant anywhere in the universe. In the entire universe, other than the Dominators, there were only 300 people stronger than him, and basically all of them were in Fantasy Town. In this vast world, who could be his opponent? No one could ignore his attack. But at this moment, everyone had a strange feeling. When this person's axe neared Lin Jun, it seemed to slow down. Everyone could clearly see Lin Jun slowly turn around and face Mountain Breaker axe. Then, he calmly said a single word. "Scram!" This voice was like spring thunder, and it sounded in the attacker's ears. At the same time, Lin Jun's Sun Moon star ring flashed. That was the sign of his mind power exploding. Forceful mind power suppression. And something even more shocking happened. This person's head suddenly tilted back, and then he fell down with a plop. His body rolled on the ground, and he howled. His hands covered his head, and he looked like he was better off dead. Everyone's pupils dilated at this moment. This is impossible. Demon Archer grimaced. Lin Jun's method was simple and clear. Forceful mind attack, destroying the other party's mind resistance, and using mind power to tear apart the other party's mind sea. Everyone knew this method, but it could only be used when facing weaklings. Everyone was a quasi-dominator, and their minds all entered the crystal formation realm. How could they be defeated by this method? Could it be that Lin Jun's mind power already reached late-stage crystal formation realm? Only when the crystal formation realm exceeded 100% could one be considered late-stage. But how could late-stage crystal formation realm be so easy to reach? Even the general's mind power was barely close to 50%. Late-stage crystal formation realm, coupled with Sun Moon Star Ring, and catching the opponent off guard, it could indeed defeat this quasi-dominator's mind. Everyone had never seen such a battle between quasi-dominators. Just a shout of scram, and the other party really rolled and crawled on the ground. This kind of visual impact made these arrogant powerhouses' hearts turn cold. Some people already secretly took out mind defense equipment that they hadn't used for a long time and secretly put it on, so as to avoid following in the footsteps of their companions on the ground. Lin Jun looked at the general's hand that took out the mind defense necklace, and the mockery on his face became even thicker. He suddenly took a step forward and stomped on the head of the person who was still rolling and struggling. Pooh! This person's head exploded like a rotten watermelon. Chapter 1299. The general's face was ashen as he put on the spiritual defense equipment. This necklace was originally something he hated. He thought that it was something only women wore. However, facing Lin Jun, who had a strong spiritual power, he had no choice but to wear it. After wearing it, he felt a sense of security. The general's cold gaze landed on Lin Jun again. "Young man, you must have always been a strong spirit reader. I can tell from the spiritual power equipment above your head. However, you made a mistake. You shouldn't have given us the chance to wear it. You're digging your own grave." With a wave of his hand, the group of people behind him opened up and surrounded Lin Jun. However, the general didn't immediately step forward. Standing in front of Lin Jun was Bonehead, who was currently ranked 110 on the Heaven Monument. In this year, Bonehead had been crazily accumulating points every day. He had risen to his current rank. Bonehead was still unsatisfied with the battle a year ago. He had always been looking forward to a chance for revenge. Now the chance had come. "Lin Jun!" Bonehead roared at Lin Jun. Then, a golden round shield suddenly appeared on his arm. Seeing Bonehead's shield, everyone was stunned. A shield from a high-grade equipment. High-grade equipment wasn't much in their eyes. Almost everyone had one. However, shields were different. Shield-type equipment was very rare. Even if it was a high-grade one, it was still very hard to obtain. This was because as long as you successfully blocked a shield, you could almost completely defend against the opponent's attack. They didn't expect Bonehead to be able to exchange for a shield. It could be seen that he had worked very hard. "Lin Jun, a year ago, you used stacking techniques to defeat me. Today, I will return everything you've done to me. Kill!" Bonehead shouted and took the initiative to attack Lin Jun. Bonehead admired himself for being able to do such a thing. The shadow of being killed by Lin Jun last year hadn't disappeared. In order to block Lin Jun's 4-time stacking, he had specially exchanged for this shield. He had paid a huge price. This shield was what he was relying on, because this shield had been tested to be able to withstand 4 times the power of a normal pseudo-dominator. There had once been a pseudo-dominator ranked within the top 20 who hadn't been able to shatter this shield, even with 4 times the damage. No matter how strong Lin Jun was, it was also impossible for him to enter the top 20. Bonehead's attack gave the surrounding pseudo-dominators an opportunity. They followed behind Bonehead and attacked Lin Jun at the same time. Looking at the oncoming bones, Lin Jun sneered and raised his hand to take out the golden eagle sword. He didn't need to use his spear to deal with pseudo-dominators who weren't ranked in the top 100. When Bonehead was only 5 meters away from him, Lin Jun suddenly activated the temporal field to slow him down. Bonehead's rapidly charging figure suddenly stopped. Lin Jun calmly drew his sword, chopping downwards. A blurry handprint appeared in the air. Outer binding seal. The general behind saw Lin Jun's handprint and was shocked. "Quickly dodge, this is 5 times stacking." Unfortunately, his shout was too late. Lin Jun already didn't give Bonehead any chance. His lightning-fast sword, with traces of silver light, descended like a net. Slash! Spring thunder, thunderclap across the sky. The entire space seemed to have been cut open. It rubbed left and right, then healed. Space could heal, but the people standing on this line didn't have the ability to do so. Bonehead's shield flashed with white light. Then it uniformly split to the left and right, falling down on the spot. The shield was a high-grade weapon, but it had been destroyed. And behind the shield, a diagonal line appeared on Bonehead's body. Countless amounts of energy began to pour out. His divine body couldn't withstand this kind of attack and was about to collapse. However, he was still unwilling. He forcefully suppressed his collapsing body and asked, "You, how did you break the shield? I tested it." Lin Jun laughed. "Idiot, I don't need to explain to you." Scram! With a final roar, a wave of air blew Bonehead's body apart. Lin Jun stomped on the ground and shot out like a cannonball. He became one with his sword, and in the time acceleration and deceleration, he directly cut open the stomachs of the 4 quasi-dominators. It wasn't that these people couldn't see Lin Jun, but that they couldn't stop him. When you used your strength, time would often slow down. Although it was only for an instant, it was enough to kill. The opponent's sword was clearly a high-grade weapon. but it had the power of a top-grade weapon. They couldn't block it at all. In an instant, half of the people were defeated. The general behind finally couldn't stand it anymore. He originally hoped that these people would create a chance for him, but he didn't expect them to be so useless. If he didn't act now, his subordinates would all be eliminated. Lin Jun, you brat. That's enough. The general took out a Fangtian halberd. The halberd was a long weapon. At the same time, it was also very difficult to practice. It had the characteristics of swords, spears, and staffs, but overall, it was more like a spear. Seeing the general take out his halberd, the others all retreated. While opening up a path for their big brother, they were also terrified. This Lin Jun's strength didn't match his ranking at all. If they continued to fight, they would be courting death. Lin Jun looked playfully at the general, a super expert who was ranked in the top 100. The general walked towards Lin Jun and stopped 10 meters away. Lin Jun, I admit that I underestimated you. In Fantasy Town, the strong have always been respected. If you're willing to follow me and follow Big Brother Purple Xinghe, I can let bygones be bygones. Lin Jun coldly snorted. If you people hand over all your energy pearls, I can let bygones be bygones. Then it seems that we can't come to an agreement. The general shook the Fangtian halberd in his hand. Do you think that just because your divine power is tyrannical, you can fight against me? Let me tell you, you are gravely mistaken. Being in the top 100 of the Heavenly Monument and being outside the top 100 is a completely different concept. This is because we're using Dominator battle skills. After saying this, a powerful aura arose from the general's body. Within this aura, everyone could clearly feel the power of a Dominator. It was just like how people who had consumed Dominator's elixir would naturally have Dominator's power. This was the case for the general. However, he hadn't consumed the Dominator's elixir yet. This gave everyone an even greater shock. The surrounding pseudo-Dominators all cheered loudly, cheering the general on. Facing a challenger, Lin Jun put away his golden eagle longsword. With a wave of his hand, a 7-meter-long spear appeared in his hand. He pointed it at the general. Limestone spear. Top-quality equipment. The surrounding people cried out in shock. They didn't expect Lin Jun to have top-quality equipment. Just how many energy pearls did this kid obtain? What shocked them even more was that the aura rising from Lin Jun's body was even stronger than the general's. Chapter 1300. When Lin Jun raised his spear, the scene was completely silent. Lin Jun's godly power far surpassed everyone present. Even the general's godly power was below Lin Jun's. There was no need to compare the numbers. Just by looking at how Lin Jun had harvested pseudo-Dominator level lives, one could tell. The general might be able to fight against Lin Jun with his Dominator level battle technique, but when Lin Jun also used his Dominator level battle technique, the general's chances weren't high. However, the general had already used his halberd. The arrow was already knocked and had to be fired. He couldn't accept being disarmed without firing a single shot. Lin Jun, don't think you could be so tyrannical just because you know a Dominator level battle technique. This type of battle technique isn't something that can be learned in a day or two. How old are you? How much cultivation do you have? Today, I'll teach you a lesson. The general shook his halberd and stepped in front of Lin Jun, fiercely stabbing at him. This stab was peerlessly powerful. Space locked and energy surged. The surrounding people couldn't help but retreat, not daring to look directly at it. In front of a Dominator level battle technique, a pseudo-Dominator level battle technique's power was greatly reduced. They weren't even on the same level. Facing this attack, the other pseudo-Dominators were all trying to think of a countermeasure. If they were in Lin Jun's position, how would they react? However, no matter how they thought, there was only one conclusion. It was hard to resist. They believed that Lin Jun wouldn't be able to block it. The general didn't dare say he would win for sure, but just by looking at this halberd, he wouldn't lose. Lin Jun's lips curled into a smile. He stood in place without moving. His hands gripped the bluestone spear's shaft as he attacked with lightning speed. A spark of life, like a shining star in the night sky, as fast as a meteor. Although he attacked later, he struck at the same time as the general's halberd. Pu Pu. Two muffled sounds rang out. Lin Jun didn't dodge the general's halberd, but the general had no way of dodging Lin Jun's spear. Two streaks of blood flew out. Both were injured. Although both of them were injured, it was not a draw. Lin Jun's bluestone spear fiercely pierced through the general's abdomen, piercing through his body armor. The spearhead penetrated 3 feet from his back. The general was a little dispirited. Lin Jun's spear had directly destroyed nearly half of his divine body's energy. This spear had seriously injured him. However, his sky piercer only managed to cut through the skin of Lin Jun's abdomen. Although there were wounds, they were very shallow. Moreover, Lin Jun's wounds were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, they were completely healed. This is impossible. The general's eyes were bloodshot as he stared at the scene in disbelief. One had to know that right now, Lin Jun wasn't even wearing any protective armor. With his physical strength alone, he was able to block the general's sovereign battle technique attack and only suffered a superficial wound. A pseudo-dominator ranked in the top 100 had also used a dominator battle technique. How could such a result only cause such negligible damage to him? If the general hadn't personally experienced it, he definitely wouldn't have believed it if someone else told him. Facing him, Lin Jun held his spear and coldly laughed. Why do so many people always say it's impossible after they fail? If it's impossible, then what do you see with your eyes? No. I definitely don't believe this is real. I want to try again. The general roared unwillingly. He once again swung his sky piercer, wanting to attack Lin Jun again. I've already seen through your strength. No need. Lin Jun didn't give him such a chance. He pulled out his spear and attacked again as fast as lightning. Pooh! Large amounts of blood spurted out of the general's chest. Lin Jun's second spear directly pierced through his opponent's heart, instantly emptying the general's divine body of energy. With just 2 simple spears, he had killed a super expert ranked 68th on the Heavenly Monument. What kind of strength was this? The surrounding pseudo-dominators were all terrified. There was no need for the following battle. These people screamed and scattered in all directions. Lin Jun didn't chase after them. He began to collect the energy pearls that the dead people dropped. This time, his harvest wasn't small, especially the general. He had dropped 4 to 5,000 energy pearls. This made Lin Jun a small fortune. After collecting all the energy pearls, Lin Jun walked toward the roof. Pung pung pung. Continuous bowstring sounds could be heard. The demon bow hidden on the roof fired at Lin Jun. Lin Jun did not dodge at all. Instead, he strode forward and allowed the arrows to land on his body. It was impossible for them to cause much damage to him. By the time Lin Jun reached the roof, the demon bow was already scared silly. He trembled and said, You, why don't you use soul lock on me again? At this moment, in his eyes, Lin Jun was an unkillable monster in human form. He didn't even have the qualifications to fight with him. Lin Jun shook his finger. No need this time. You have no value anymore. Your only use is to contribute your energy pearls. If you kill me, you won't have a good ending. You just killed the general. If the boss of Purple Star River finds out, he won't let you go. The demon bow howled with all his might. Lin Jun didn't want to listen to his nonsense. He raised his hand and shot. The demon bow's divine body couldn't even withstand a single shot from Lin Jun. He was directly pierced and exploded. The energy pearls rolled down. Lin Jun collected them all. This time, he had about 10,000 energy beads in his hands. He first bought a double-stack cultivation fragment. He didn't touch the remaining energy pearls for now. He would wait until he had more. However, Lin Jun didn't return to the 50 times cultivation points to continue cultivating. First, there was no longer any protection. Second, he planned to go to the center of town to take a look. The strongest demonic beasts of the 12 Zodiac Beast Horde were all gathered in the center of town. That was a huge fortune. Lin Jun had to go and get a share of it. He didn't have that kind of strength back then. Now, Lin Jun really wanted to know what rank he would be on the Divine Monument. After killing these people, Lin Jun's ranking soared all the way to 88th place. Among them, the general contributed the most points. Holding the bluestone spear, Lin Jun left the east side of town and headed toward the center of town. In the center of town, outside the town hall, a huge encirclement was going on. Almost all the experts were gathered here. They were attacking the demonic beast's nest from all directions. After 2 years, the demonic beasts in the periphery had finally been cleared out. Only this group of stubborn demonic beasts was left. However, this place wasn't easy to clear out. The Emperor-tier demonic beast, Tiger King, and 5 King-tier demonic beasts were all here. They led a large group of elite demonic beasts to occupy this place. This gave the surrounding pseudo-dominators a headache. Old Ancestor Golden Rock, Sunflower Scar, Purple Star River, Skywalker, Old Ancestor Sealing Blade, Mountain Rock, and other big shots each occupied a position. They led their subordinates to slowly clear out the demonic beasts. Sunflower Scar was dressed in colorful clothes. He was constantly looking around during the battle. Chapter 13:01. Sunflower Scar was just looking around out of habit. She didn't have much hope that the thief would appear again. It was the same today. She looked around and said to the women beside her, "Everyone, let's work harder. Most of these elite monsters have been cleared. Next, we just need to take care of the king monsters. Then we can deal with the Tiger King." At this point, she suddenly stopped. In the east of the town, a man with a huge spear on his shoulder appeared. The spear was very exaggerated. It was 7 meters long and thicker than a rice bowl. If one didn't have a pair of big hands, they wouldn't be able to hold it. The spear seemed to be made of stone. It shone with a faint light and was definitely not ordinary. The man with the spear was nearly 9 meters tall and had a handsome face. When he appeared from the ruins, he was very eye-catching. Sunflower Scar looked at the man in a daze. The women beside her saw Sunflower Scar's appearance and then looked at the man with a strong masculine aura. They couldn't help but cover their mouths and chuckle. Could it be that their big sister had fallen in love with him? Sunflower Scar ignored the women who were snickering. Instead, she muttered to herself. She felt that this person was somewhat similar, but that person had disappeared too quickly. Sunflower Scar couldn't see him clearly at all. Although she remembered some of his characteristics, she couldn't verify them. Could it be him? Unless I carefully sense his scent or touch that spot again, I can't be sure. What should I do? Sunflower Scar was a little anxious, but she didn't show it. She was still waiting patiently. Since the other party was here, there would probably be a chance to meet him. At the same time, the others looked at Lin Jun. Xinghe, Ancestor Feng Dao, and the others all looked at Lin Jun. General had been resurrected and returned to Xinghe's side. He said to Xinghe, "Boss, it's this person. He killed us just now. His name is Lin Jun." Xinghe narrowed his eyes slightly. "Lin Jun, good. You don't have to worry about this. Leave it to me." Xinghe already knew the situation of the battle from General and the others. This Lin Jun's godly power had probably reached 10 million, and he was proficient in a sovereign's battle skill. This made him very difficult to deal with. The general had only taken 2 moves from him, and this alone was enough to prove that he was not inferior to Purple Xinghe. He wanted to teach Lin Jun a lesson, but he wouldn't act rashly. He looked left and right. To his left was the demoness Sunflower Scar, and to his right was the arrogant Sealing Saber Ancestor. As for Patriarch Golden Rock, Tian Xing, and Shan Shi, they were currently in 3 different directions. Everyone agreed that the 6 of them would each take a position and seal off the demonic beasts in the town. They would slowly encircle and clean up the demonic beasts. Now they were nearing the end. At this time, Lin Jun wanting to come over was obviously unacceptable. Xinghe rolled his eyes and came to Sealed Saber Ancestor's side. "Brother, look at this person. I'm afraid he's here to get a share of the loot." Old Ancestor Feng Dao sneered. "What kind of Tom, Dick, and Harry are trying to take advantage of us? Don't even think about whether they have the qualifications. If we don't agree, what right does he have to come in? That's hard to say. Those who come don't have good intentions." After saying that, Xinghe suddenly shouted at Lin Jun, "Hey, brat, don't you know this is Sealed Saber Ancestor's territory? Take one more step and you'll die." Sealed Saber Ancestor frowned. This Purple Xinghe guy had pushed him to the front line. Although he knew Purple Xinghe had ulterior motives, he didn't care. The person on the other side was only ranked 88th on the human heavenly steel. He didn't put him his eyes at all. Even if Purple Xinghe wanted to use him, he would just kill him with one more move. He might even obtain a large number of energy beads. Because he was confident, he didn't care. Lin Jun walked over and glanced around. When he saw Sunflower Scar, a trace of surprise appeared in his eyes. His surprise was just right. It was the reaction of a man who had seen an outstanding beauty. This also reflected the fact that this was his first time seeing Sunflower Scar. Sunflower Scar had been paying attention to Lin Jun's expression. If Lin Jun panicked, she would attack. If Lin Jun didn't seem to care, she would attack. She was confident in her looks. Even if she wasn't a pervert, it was normal to take a second look. If he didn't care at all, then he was pretending. However, Lin Jun's reaction made her hesitate. Is it really not him? But I feel like it's him. After Lin Jun looked around, he said to Purple Xinghe and Sealed Saber Ancestor, I don't care whose territory this is. I came here today to occupy a place. You must bring me to the battle to kill Tiger King. Brat, what makes you think you can do that? Sealed Saber Ancestor was unhappy. Lin Jun smiled. I don't know if you have the final say. Do you want to call the person who has the final say here over for a discussion? As for why, Lin Jun raised his bluestone spear. With my life and this spear, you could draw a line, and I'll accept it. His arrogant words made Sealed Saber Ancestor choke. His opponent was too calm, and his tone was too imposing. Sealed Saber Ancestor couldn't immediately attack. At this time, Purple Xinghe said, It's not like there are no rules. We have 6 people here. If you can get the approval of 3, then you'll be qualified to enter. You'll also have to accept a challenge from one of us. Sure, come. Lin Jun stabbed his spear into the ground and waited for the other party's result. At the same time, he made a thumbs-down gesture to Sealing Saber Ancestor because he could see that the other party was a very arrogant person. This gesture really made Sealing Saber Ancestor lose his calm, and a thick murderous intent appeared in his eyes. After a while, Golden Rock Ancestor, Tian Xing, and Shan Shi all arrived. Although the Heavenly Steel had the top 10 and 100, the ones who really decided their fate were the 6 of them. This was because the 7th was Golden Rock Ancestor's little brother, the 8th was Sunflower Scar's little sister, the 9th was Purple Xinghe's subordinate, and the 10th was Sealed Saber Ancestor's subordinate. After listening to Purple Xinghe's explanation, 3 people had to agree to Lin Jun's proposal. If 3 people did not agree, then Lin Jun would not be able to enter this place unless she defeated everyone. Purple Xinghe spoke first. I'll say this first. I don't agree with him joining. I don't agree either, Shanshir said. Same. I don't agree either. Where did this guy come from? How come I didn't know before? Tian Xing continued. Sealed Saber Ancestor unexpectedly said, That guy's provoking me. I agree. Otherwise, he'll look down on me. Purple Xinghe smiled. It's useless if you agree alone. There needs to be at least 3 of you. I agree. Sunflower Scar suddenly said. She still had to verify Lin Jun's identity, so of course she wouldn't disagree. 3-2. Now it all depended on Golden Rock's attitude. If he agreed, then Lin Jun could stay and accept the challenge. If he didn't, then Lin Jun couldn't enter. Chapter 1302. Patriarch Golden Rock was a Kuan Peng in human form, one of the top galactic beasts. He had the largest divine body, and his energy value was even higher than Lin Jun's. Even though Lin Jun had fused with the behemoth gene of heaven, his energy value was still a bit lower than the Kuan Peng's. Of course, this was also related to the fact that Lin Jun hadn't reached the peak of quasi-ruler level. This person had a sinister face, a hooked nose, and thin lips. He looked a bit scary. Golden Rock's gaze fell on Lin Jun. He looked him over and suddenly said, According to the information I received, you are from the Lone Star clan? Lin Jun nodded. That's right. His master was Lone Star Fishing Old Man, so there was nothing to hide. Golden Rock chuckled. Originally, I would never allow anyone to enter this circle and take a share of our income. However, since you're my junior brother, that is a different matter. I will allow you to join. Of course, you'll have to accept the challenge and pass it. Lin Jun was stunned. He hadn't expected Patriarch Golden Rock to be Lone Star Fishing Old Man's disciple. He had heard Lone Star Fishing Old Man say that he had several disciples. It seemed Kuan Pong was one of them. "Greetings, senior brother." Lin Jun cupped his fists. Haha, good, good, good. Which one of you wants to challenge my junior brother? Patriarch Golden Rock seemed to want a rope in Lin Jun. His gaze swept over everyone, a hint of threat in his eyes. Sunflower Scar moved, but she didn't move. It was unknown what she was thinking. Purple Shingha, Skywalker, Mountain Stone, and the others all expressed that they had no intention of fighting Lin Jun. They were giving face to Patriarch Golden Rock. Only Patriarch Sealing Saber showed an unconvinced expression. His name and Patriarch Golden Rock's clashed. He had once been defeated by Patriarch Golden Rock, so he changed his name to Sealing Saber. Being defeated by the Golden Rock was a great humiliation to him. He wanted to take revenge, but the Golden Rock's strength made him hesitate. Now that Lin Jun had appeared, he saw an opportunity. Even if you can't defeat the Golden Rock, can't you defeat your junior brother? Today, I will ruthlessly teach Lin Jun a lesson and vent my anger from that year. With that thought in mind, he stepped forward and pointed at Lin Jun. "Stinking brat, if you want to join us, you'll have to get past me first." Lin Jun rested his spear on his shoulder and smiled. "Sure. Otherwise, it wouldn't be proper. It wouldn't be what I want. Cut the crap and prepare to die." Sealing Saber Ancestor took a step forward. This step was taken with great care. Lin Jun was about to speak, but before he could say anything, he took a step forward as if he was about to attack. This made Lin Jun swallow his words. However, he did not attack. This kind of sullen feeling immediately manifested. The battle had not yet begun, but it had already brought about an incomparably huge pressure. Lin Jun's expression also became serious. This Sealing Saber Ancestor was ranked 4th on the Heavenly Steel and could be said to be one of the top few. Defeating him would prove that Lin Jun's hard work during this period of time was not in vain. He had already achieved great results. If he couldn't beat Sealing Saber Ancestor, then it would be a huge blow to Lin Jun. Sealing Saber Ancestor unexpectedly took a step forward and faintly gained the upper hand. Seeing the effect, Sealing Saber Ancestor couldn't help but feel proud. In the end, Lin Jun was still young. With this, he was able to suppress him. This battle was already half won. He opened his mouth to laugh, but before he could laugh, Lin Jun suddenly took a few steps forward. Dang, dang, dang. Lin Jun fiercely stepped on the ground, leaving a few footprints. An astonishing aura rushed out, like an ancient beast that wanted to devour people. These steps were even more exquisite than Sealing Saber Ancestors. The first step caused Sealing Saber Ancestor to stifle his laughter. Every step after that was firmly stomped on his opponent's heartbeat. Seeing Lin Jun about to attack, Sealing Saber Ancestor couldn't help but take 2 steps back and raise his saber to meet the attack. However, at this time, Lin Jun stopped and pointed his spear at Sealing Saber Ancestor. "I'm tired of this kind of trick when I was a warlord. Taking it out now is simply a disgrace." Golden Rock Ancestor frowned when he saw Lin Jun at a disadvantage. He didn't expect Lin Jun to give him a taste of his own medicine in the blink of an eye. He couldn't help but smile and gently clap. "As expected of my junior brother, well done." The others also became serious. It seemed that this Lin Jun was not simple. Sealing Saber Ancestor was in a bit of trouble. Sealing Saber Ancestor's heart was uncomfortable. He was no longer in his best condition and urgently needed a vent. "Ignorant brat, you're courting death." He raised his sheathed saber. This time, he no longer bluffed and fiercely attacked Lin Jun. Although it was a sheathed saber and the blade was not unsheathed, when he attacked, it stirred up wind and thunder. Saber Chi flew through the air and slammed into Lin Jun, causing the space around him to crackle. Just by relying on Saber Chi, Sealing Saber Ancestor could cut through space. His strength was beyond imagination. Beside him, Purple Shingha's expression changed. "This guy, his strength has increased again. If we really fight, it's hard to say if I can win." Shan Shi and Tian Xing originally wanted to challenge Sealing Saber Ancestor for 4th place, but seeing him attack, they couldn't help but temporarily dispel the idea. "Sealing Saber, after being defeated by me many years ago, he didn't use his saber. Now that he's using the sheath, his attack power is definitely not at the level of the top four. This saber won't be easy to block. Golden Rock Ancestor's expression was solemn. Sealing Saber's performance made him take it seriously. Sealing Saber's entire body rushed forward amidst the saber chi. He raised his saber with both hands and slashed down with all his might. This saber contained his essence, energy, and spirit. His entire body's strength exploded to the peak, and he struck down with all his might. At this moment, space was frozen. Teleportation couldn't be used. After being humiliated by Lin Jun, he was determined to end his opponent in one strike, to vent his hatred and give Golden Rock a slap in the face. Like the morning sun piercing through the dark sky, the sword of God whistled down. Before the saber arrived, the ground began to crack and collapse. Everyone narrowed their eyes slightly, waiting for the result of this saber strike. Now, it seemed that it was likely to end. Then, they saw Lin Jun raise his spear. With both hands holding the bluestone spear, Lin Jun at this moment turned into a huge mountain that seemed to be able to support the heavens and earth. Immovable like a mountain. Open. Bang! The entire fantasy town shook in this collision, and the explosion of the air roared in the air, and the whistling air waves blew everyone's clothes. After the air waves passed, the figures of the two people were revealed. Lin Jun maintained his spear position. Although the ground around him cracked, he was safe and sound. As for Sealing Saber Ancestor, at this moment, he took 3 steps back, leaving 3 deep footprints in the ground. Chapter 1303. This collision directly illustrated a problem. It was a problem of strength. The two fought to the death. Lin Jun had the advantage of a long weapon, but he was on the defensive. Sealing Saber Ancestor was on the same level. But Sealing Saber Ancestor was forced back 3 steps, which meant that Lin Jun's divine power was above Sealing Saber Ancestor's. One must know that Sealing Saber Ancestor was a super expert with a divine power of 9 million, but he was still forced back. Lin Jun's divine power was definitely over 10 million. Purple Xinghe, Mountain Stone, and Skywalker's eyes almost fell out of their sockets. Even Patriarch Golden Rock and Sunflower Scar's eyes were wide open. They had been watching the battle with a lofty attitude, but they hadn't expected Lin Jun to turn out to be a ferocious tiger instead of a little lamb. Suddenly discovering that the other party was an expert on the same level as them, even they couldn't help but feel fear. Golden Rock Old Ancestor's eyes shone brightly. It seemed like he had a rope in this junior brother of his. If he used him well, he could become his right-hand man and protect him. When the Eternity Mountain descended, no one would be a threat to him. Sunflower Scar's eyes were filled with shock and disappointment. This person's strength was so strong that he shouldn't be the person he was looking for. Otherwise, he wouldn't have run away in such a sorry state. Sealing Saber Ancestor's heart was pounding. When an expert made a move, one would know whether or not they were strong. This Lin Jun in front of him was actually stronger than him. However, Sealing Saber Ancestor wasn't someone who would admit defeat so easily, especially in front of so many people. He held his saber with both hands and repeatedly said "good" to Lin Jun. "Good, good, good." Sure enough, heroes come from the youth. But how old are you? Even if your divine power is tyrannical, your battle skills are definitely not good enough. Today, I will teach you a lesson. Elemental Chain. Sealing Saber Ancestor was not willing to lose face. He once again swung his saber and fiercely chopped at Lin Jun. 3 consecutive slashes, each of them taking a life. The first slash, ice and fire elements collided, forming an ice and fire attack. The second slash was accompanied by howling winds and roaring thunder. It was as if the god of thunder had descended to earth. The third slash, the intersection of light and darkness, heaven and hell, so close yet so far. Everyone's expression changed drastically when these 3 saber strikes were unleashed. Feng Dao Ancestor had never used these 3 blades before. His mastery of the elements was simply unbelievable. This should be one of his trump cards. If he suddenly used it on other people, it would really be difficult to resist. But now, Lin Jun had forced him to use it. Facing the opponent's powerful attack, Lin Jun laughed loudly. The spear in his hand suddenly spun like a windmill. The elements on the blade are still elements. The real killer is still your blade. As long as your blade can't break through my defense, those mere elements won't be able to hurt me. Ding, 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 zhong. A series of collisions evolved into a long, harsh sound. Countless sparks flew in the air. The scattered elements roared and surged, forming a strange scene in front of Lin Jun's spear. Sealing's saber ancestor's attack was like an endless tide, but Lin Jun's spear was like a reef on the shore. No matter how strong the wind and waves were, they would only be smashed to pieces. On the spear's side, the endless energy was like the end of the world. On the other side, the spear was calm. Everyone could clearly see the ridicule on Lin Jun's face. Sealing's saber ancestor kept roaring, desperately urging his elemental energy to no avail. Lin Jun seemed to be immune to elemental energy. At the very least, the elemental energy he sent out had no effect at all. Seeing this scene, Golden Rock Ancestor deeply sucked in a breath of cold air. Teacher, is this your proud disciple? This profound meaning of being immovable like a mountain really made people gasp in amazement. If it's because of your teachings, then you're too biased. Sunflower Scar frowned and thought to herself, this person can't be immune to all elements, right? That's too scary. Purple Shing has secretly felt lucky. Luckily, Sealing Saber Ancestor made a move. If I rashly made a move, I would have lost a lot of face. My divine power isn't much stronger than Sealing Saber's, and I wouldn't be able to break through his defense. This Lin Jun, with his tyrannical divine power and profound meaning of immovable as a mountain, is basically in an invincible position. Tian Xing and Shanshi looked at each other and thought of the same question. If they were to fight Lin Jun, they definitely wouldn't fight alone. To break Lin Jun's immovable as a mountain, they would have to attack from both front and back. Otherwise, it would be hopeless. Bang! With an ear-piercing roar, Sealing's saber ancestor retreated. It couldn't be called retreating, it could be called exhaustion. Lin Jun didn't give chase at all. Sealing's saber ancestor gave up on attacking. No matter how long he kept attacking, it was meaningless. He couldn't break through Lin Jun's defense. Sealing's saber ancestor's chest violently heaved. He could feel the mocking gazes of the people around him. He couldn't stand it. Losing to Golden Rock Ancestor was one thing, but how could he lose to a nameless brat? He couldn't afford to lose face like this. He had to get it back. Lin Jun, you're really good. For countless years, only Golden Rock has given me such pressure. But you're not Golden Rock. Even if you are, you'll have to suffer a little in front of my next move. I don't believe there's anyone in this world who can block my attack. Before he finished speaking, Sealing's saber ancestor threw away the scabbard on his saber. Come out, my old friend. A cold light burst out like autumn water. Everyone's hair stood on end at this moment. Extreme grade saber, autumn water chill. Even Golden Rock's expression changed. Sealing's saber. You actually took the initiative to draw your saber. That's right. 1 billion years. 1 billion years ago, I sealed my saber and swore never to draw it again. But today, Golden Rock, your good junior brother, forced me to change my mind. He won't give up until I defeat him. Sunflower Scar and the others looked dignified. Today's battle should have been fine. Sealing Saber had already proven that Lin Jun was on the same level as them. But Sealing Saber wasn't willing to give up. He had even drawn his saber, Autumn Water Chill, which hadn't been drawn in 1 billion years. This battle wouldn't end well. Even if Lin Jun's defense was tyrannical, it was still unknown whether or not he could block Sealing Saber Ancestor. But just when everyone thought Sealing Saber Ancestor was about to show off his might, Lin Jun suddenly sneered. So what if I draw my saber? It's just a sharper weapon. Since you want to test my strength, I'll fulfill your wish. I'm just afraid you won't be able to handle it. I've played enough Sealing Saber. It's your turn now. Without any warning, Lin Jun suddenly changed his stance. Stepping forward, his bluestone spear trembled like a viper, shooting out a large number of spear shadows. In the middle, starlight shone brightly and the spear seemed to appear from another dimension. In the blink of an eye, it was in front of Sealing Saber, a spark of life. Chapter 1304. Feng Dao Ancestor thought that he had already taken Lin Jun seriously. After all, he had taken out his treasured saber that had been sealed for 1,000,000,000 years. Lin Jun was still a newcomer, so he had to be cautious. Feng Dao Ancestor was still the one taking the initiative, but he never expected that Lin Jun would do the exact opposite. He didn't even care about the fact that he only drew his blade once every 1,000,000,000 years. Instead, he attacked and stabbed with his spear. Feng Dao Ancestor had underestimated Lin Jun's boldness. This young man was not what he had imagined. This was not a weakling, but a true expert. There was no end to learning. Age had nothing to do with it. Feng Dao Ancestor thought that Lin Jun's defense was good, but he didn't expect his attack to be so strong. Feng Dao Ancestor felt an extreme sense of danger from the moment he attacked. Not good. Feng Dao Ancestor roared and waved his saber to block. But it was too late. Lin Jun didn't want to give Feng Dao Ancestor a chance to make a comeback. He attacked with a triple-layered outer line seal. The saber's defense was not as strong as the spear's. Lin Jun's first attack was successful. Sword and spear collided, creating an unpleasant sound of friction. Sealing Saber Ancestor tried his best, but his divine power was not as strong as Lin Jun's. Although he managed to avoid being hit in the vitals, his shoulder was hit. Lin Jun's spear was not so simple. The moment it hit, the chaotic energy exploded at the tip of the spear. It could even explode a star, let alone Feng Dao Ancestor's shoulder. With a loud explosion, Feng Dao Ancestor's shoulder was badly mutilated. Although the spear did not injure him, the injury was not light. Not to mention, Lin Jun's attack was far from over. The spear pushed Sealing Saber Ancestor's body forward. Then, he took 2 steps forward and released the spear. 2 balls of moonlight flashed in the sky, one in front and one behind. They were like 2 moons flying at high speed. 2 moons in the sky illuminating the netherworld. Under the pure white moonlight was a bottomless abyss, an eternal darkness that represented death. Ignoring the injury on his shoulder, Sealing Saber Ancestor's body glowed and all his defensive equipment appeared. He had a saber that was a top-grade weapon, and he also had a lot of high-grade armors. He knew that Lin Jun's spear would be difficult to block, so he had to ensure that his divine body would not be destroyed. Otherwise, the battle would be over. The 2 balls of moonlight fiercely bombarded each other. A dazzling white light flashed in front of everyone's eyes. They could no longer see anything. They could only rely on their spiritual power to sense Sealing Saber Ancestor's situation. On top of these 2 spears, Lin Jun had superimposed the inner lion seal with 4 times the lethality. Sealed Saber Ancestor's body was sent flying like a cannonball. His body flew in a V shape and slammed into a house in town. It was a building that had not been damaged by the flames of war. When Sealing Saber Ancestor crashed into it, the walls cracked like a spider web. It was about to collapse. Sealing Saber Ancestor spat out a mouthful of blood. 2 bull-sized holes appeared in his chest. His divine body's energy had dropped to 30%. This was a very dangerous value. It was very likely that he would be killed at any time. Lin Jun had succeeded once again. His spear danced in a circle as he laughed. 4th place on the heavenly steel. You only draw your blade once in 1,000,000,000 years. Now take this spear. Strands of silver threads gathered on the spear. 5 times the damage superimposed outer binding seal had been formed. 3 golden stars flashed, each of them emitting a strong demonic aura. They revolved around Lin Jun. This was the 3rd move of his star spear art, 3 stars circling Earth's end. His body turned into a stream of light as he fiercely rushed towards Sealing Saber. He wanted to end the battle with this one strike. On the opposite side, Sealing Saber Ancestor knew that he had kicked an iron plate today. Although Lin Jun's sudden attack had caught him off guard and put him in a disadvantageous position, the opponent's violent offensive power had left a deep impression on him. He couldn't admit defeat like this. This was Fantasy Town. Even if he died, he could still come back. He couldn't lose the battle. Therefore, he desperately mustered the last of his strength and poured it all into his autumn water-cold saber. He wanted to fight to the death. Even if he died, he wanted to give Lin Jun a fierce blow. He was very confident in his lethality. He might even be able to turn the tables if he managed to land a hit. But the others didn't see it that way. Lin Jun's attack and defense were already impressive. For such a powerhouse, his divine body was definitely not weak. Sealing Saber Ancestor's attack was just a last-ditch struggle. Seeing Lin Jun shoot forward like a cannonball, in their opinion, this battle was about to end. Fantasy Town was destined to welcome a powerhouse. Just before the final collision occurred, someone made a move. A shadow that blotted out the sky enveloped the scene, and a sword of God descended from the sky. This sword was so mysterious that it exploded at the point where the two were about to collide. Several balls of energy collided and exploded. The explosion of energy didn't injure anyone. Instead, it blasted into a corner, creating a huge crater. This was a forceful guidance of energy. Without absolute divine power, it was impossible to do this. The person who made the move was no weaker than Lin Jun. Lin Jun withdrew his spear and looked at the person who interfered. Senior Brother Golden Rock, why did you do this? Golden Rock Ancestor also slowly withdrew his sword. Junior Brother, that's enough. This is just a test to see if you have the qualifications to enter. It's not a life and death battle. There's no need to be so stiff. You should know that we still have to join forces to kill the Tiger King. Our goal is to become a ruler in the future, not to fight among ourselves. After saying this to Lin Jun, Golden Rock Ancestor turned to the others. All right, everyone has seen my junior brother's performance. With this kind of performance, he deserves to enter our group. There's no need for any more tests. In the future, my junior brother will occupy a territory next to me and kill monsters with everyone else. As the strongest person, Golden Rock Ancestor, what else could the others say? Moreover, Lin Jun really did have the strength to do so. Now it seemed that Lin Jun's strength was at least in the top 3 of the Divine Monument. Even Purple Xinghe wouldn't be his opponent. After hearing Golden Rock's words, Sunflower Scar directly turned around and left, returning to his own position. Since Lin Jun wasn't the person he was looking for, there was no reason for Sunflower Scar to stay any longer. Golden Rock didn't need to ask for the others' opinions. He walked over and grabbed Lin Jun's hand. Ha ha, you and I'm meeting again is a great joy in life. There's still some time before the final battle with the Tiger King. Come, let us brothers have a drink together. After saying this, the two left, leaving behind Purple Xinghe and the others, as well as the ashamed and unwilling Sealed Saber Ancestor. Chapter 1305. Lin Jun didn't have much of an impression of his senior brother. This person was a standard warrior. He was calm, rational, and decisive. However, such a person wouldn't care about human feelings at all. Warriors only knew how to scheme for themselves. Most people were like this. If that was the case, it was understandable. Everyone was like this, including Lin Jun. However, this kind of person was acting so friendly. There was no doubt that he had some ulterior motive. However, Lin Jun didn't care. He had his own principles and wouldn't be swayed by the opinions of others. Since the Golden Rock was acting friendly, Lin Jun just smiled and dealt with it. The two of them returned to the Golden Rock Ancestor's place. The Golden Rock quickly took out a large amount of delicious food and wine from the God World to entertain Lin Jun. He had several subordinates by his side. They were all super experts ranked in the top 30 of the Divine Monument. After 3 rounds of wine, the Golden Rock Ancestor laughed and said to Lin Jun, "Junior brother, it's fate that we met here. Seeing that your strength is outstanding, I don't have anything good to give you. How about this? You can kill my subordinates at will until you enter the top 30 and obtain the right to compete for the ruler's divine crystal. That'll be my gift to you. What do you think?" Lin Jun's hand paused. He smiled and said, "Thank you for your kindness, senior brother. However, I always like to rely on my own hands to get what I want." "Huh, good, as expected of teacher's disciple. Here's a toast to you." The Golden Rock wasn't angry. After drinking, he said, "Junior brother, I won't hide it from you. Your senior brother has cultivated for countless years. I've been a peak quasi-ruler for who knows how long. Just in this fantasy town alone, in this town's cultivation spot, I've been sitting here for more than 8 billion years. Hearing this number, Linjun couldn't help but sigh. More than 8 billion years. This concept was too distant. Back then, I was just a newcomer here. In the end, I still managed to get to first place. However, I couldn't take this final step. I've waited until my hair turned white. The golden rock sighed. Then, he changed the topic. Junior, I'm old. I can't wait any longer. When the eternal mountain descends next time, can you help me? After that, I'll leave this super cultivation point to Junior Apprentice Brother. My subordinates will continue to assist Junior Apprentice Brother. You can lock their souls as you wish and use them as you wish. The Golden Rock Ancestor's bait could not be said to be small. Lin Jun was also very tempted. As long as he entered the top 30, he would have a chance to fight for the ruler's divine crystal. In reality, there were only a few people who were qualified to fight for it. Including Lin Jun, there were only 7 people. Lin Jun had a chance, but he had to admit that Forefather Golden Rock had a better chance. And there was another crucial point. Lin Jun felt that his strength hadn't reached the peak yet. Now wasn't the best time to fuse with the ruler god crystal. If Lin Jun was given more time to cultivate, perhaps the results would be even better. Forefather Golden Rock Ancestor's 100 times cultivation points was undoubtedly what Lin Jun wanted. However, Lin Jun didn't believe in a free lunch. He went straight to the point. Even if you don't use me, Senior Apprentice Brother's chances are the highest. What do you want me to do? It's like this. There are only a few people participating in this competition. Sunflower Scar is my greatest enemy. I've already decided to eliminate her during the battle. Everything is already prepared. If Junior Apprentice Brother joins us, Sunflower Scar will definitely be doomed. When the time comes for me to obtain the ruler's divine crystal and she'll be killed, Junior Apprentice Brother will undoubtedly be the first in this town. I can boldly predict that the next winner of the ruler's divine crystal will be none other than you. The Golden Rock Ancestor's words weren't false. Lin Jun would receive 100 times cultivation points. Moreover, without Golden Rock and Sunflower Scar, it would be impossible for others to shake his position. Lin Jun was very happy. Senior Apprentice Brother is so generous. Junior Apprentice Brother really can't say no. Haha, good, you're straightforward. Cheers. The Golden Rock Ancestor received Lin Jun's approval and was immediately overjoyed. He raised his cup and clinked it with Lin Jun's and drank it in one gulp. The final purge of the town didn't go smoothly. The Tiger King and a few king-level monsters were entrenched together. It was very difficult to deal with them. Several operations had failed. A few of the top 30 people had even died and dropped out of the top 30. Lin Jun participated in a few operations, and his ranking rose to over 60. However, there weren't any practical gains. The monsters weren't stupid either. Their behavior made it difficult for everyone to take action. The Golden Rock Ancestor and the others were still thinking of countermeasures. It would probably take a few more days for them to come to a conclusion. Lin Jun was alone and had nothing to do. That night, he walked out of the Golden Rock Ancestor's territory. Although Fantasy Town was a virtual world, it was no different from the real world. Lin Jun had been cultivating and fighting since he came here. He hadn't carefully looked at the scenery here. The town's atmosphere was a little unpredictable. It was a little similar to the Western atmosphere on Earth, but not very similar. There were many similarities and differences in the evolution of civilizations. Walking on the streets, Lin Jun faintly felt a trace of music. The sound was crisp and clear, like a mountain flowing water or a pearl falling on a jade plate. Zither music. There's actually someone playing the zither. Lin Jun felt a little surprised. Playing the zither was an amazing skill, but everyone here was a pseudo-dominator. To be able to cultivate to this level, all of them were martial arts fanatics. They would use any spare time to cultivate. It was rare for someone to be able to learn how to play the zither. It's not bad. I should go take a look. Since he had nothing to do, Lin Jun listened to the zither music as he walked. Gradually, he walked to the northwest of the town. There was a watchtower in the northwest of the town. It was the tallest building in the town and was also at the edge of the town. Here, there weren't even any monster footprints. It could be seen how desolate this place was. The zither music came from the watchtower. Melodious, melancholic, beautiful, and sorrowful. Homesickness, nostalgia for home, family, and unwillingness in the heart. Lin Jun listened for a while. He could clearly feel these emotions from the zither music. It reflected the mood of the person playing the zither. This is a person with a story. Lin Jun glanced at the top of the watchtower. He wanted to see what kind of deity this zither player was. The tip of his foot touched the ground. Lin Jun shot up into the sky like a cannon, heading straight for the top of the watchtower. However, before his foot landed on the top of the watchtower, a silver light suddenly rushed over. The wind whistled. The speed was incomparably fast. This was a throwing knife. However, with Lin Jun's current strength, he obviously wouldn't be hurt by a mere throwing knife. He didn't even dodge. He directly opened his mouth and bit the throwing knife. Then his foot landed on the ground. He took the knife and said, "Meeting by chance is also fate. There's no need to use weapons." Chapter 1306. Lin Jun had never imagined that he'd run into Sunflower Scar here. In his mind, Sunflower Scar was a crazy demoness who killed without batting an eye. How could she possibly be related to something as beautiful as music? However, the brocade stool, stone table, and 7-string zither on the watchtower proved that she was the one playing the zither. Under the moonlight of Fantasy Town, Sunflower Scar's features were picturesque. Her skin was creamy, and her proud chin was slightly raised. Her usual coldness was gone. She glanced at Lin Jun with her starry eyes, then slowly turned her head. "You should be glad that you're new here and haven't offended me before. Otherwise, don't even think about leaving the watchtower." Lin Jun quickly regained his composure. He knew he couldn't reveal any flaws in front of Sunflower Scar, so he smiled and said, "Then should I be glad that the moonlight tonight is so gentle, making you much more easygoing?" Sunflower Scar's delicate eyebrows twitched, but she quickly calmed down. She didn't want to fight tonight, and Lin Jun had no relationship with her. "Since you heard the zither, it means you're not a brute who only knows how to cultivate. If you're willing, sit down and listen, but remember to keep your mouth shut." Lin Jun didn't hold back. He raised his hand, and a rocking chair appeared beside him. After so many years, he'd accumulated a lot of things in the God realm. Daily necessities like this were innumerable, and he had as many as he wanted. Lin Jun reclined in the rocking chair and let out a long sigh. "Very well. Let's listen to what you're best at." Sunflower Scar glared fiercely at Lin Jun. "I didn't ask you to pick a song. If you like it, then listen. If you don't, then scram." Lin Jun smiled awkwardly. He still felt a little guilty when facing Sunflower Scar, so he didn't refute and just listened patiently. Sunflower Scar ignored Lin Jun. She placed her fingers on the zither strings and started playing again. This time, as soon as the zither started playing, Lin Jun entered a state of mind. There was no doubt that Sunflower Scar's musical attainments had reached a rather high level. This wasn't something she learned later, but rather something she'd practiced since childhood. The sound of the zither seemed to be narrating a girl's life. He had a happy childhood, playing with his parents and being doted on by others. Her reluctance to practice martial arts, her crying, the youth did not know the taste of sorrow, running among the golden sunflowers. The image of a naive girl was clearly reflected in the zither music. As he listened, the zither music suddenly changed. The flames of war engulfed their homes, and the country was destroyed. Their parents died in the chaos, and the girls began to flee. Being bullied and humiliated, the grief and sorrow in one's heart was expressed through the zither. Lin Jun's expression changed slightly as he listened to this part. The girl had been through too much torture, inhumane torture. It had turned an innocent girl into a demon whose heart was filled with hatred. After that, the girl worked hard and cultivated diligently. Hatred supported her to strive for the top, not losing to any of the boys. After countless years of cultivation, Lin Jun was able to empathize with the short sound of the zither. Then, a sonorous tune played. The girl returned to her homeland and slaughtered everyone who had insulted her, destroyed her home, and brought her harm. The flames of war were merciless, and swords had no eyes. Many innocent people were even implicated. She slaughtered crazily, releasing the hatred in her heart to her heart's content. She killed and won, and blood flowed like a river. She had taken her revenge, but the name of a demon was forever engraved on her body. The zither music changed again. The emptiness in her heart tormented her as she took her revenge, causing her to lose the motivation to move forward. After she took her revenge, she felt that life was meaningless. She even wanted to commit suicide. Later on, although she mustered the courage to walk the long path of cultivation again, that was only because cultivation could relieve her of the hardships of life. She didn't even know what the purpose of cultivation was or what the meaning of it was. The zither music flowed slowly, and the days passed peacefully. Although she had a goal, which was to become a ruler, this kind of life wasn't what she truly wanted. Lin Zhen seemed to hear the girl's inner thoughts in the last tune of the zither music. So what if she became a ruler? Even when the zither music gradually softened and ended, Lin Zhen sighed softly in his heart. This might be the most tragic woman he'd ever met, but she was also the strongest woman he'd ever met. Lin Zhen didn't say a word, didn't ask a single question, but he already had a rough idea of Sunflower Scar's past. If it wasn't for personal experience, there was no way she could bring her emotions into the zither music. It was so deep and unforgettable. Otherwise, even a quasi-ruler or a ruler wouldn't be able to do this. Lin Zhen felt that his own experience was legendary enough. But aside from the fact that he'd been reborn, he felt that he was much more fortunate than Sunflower Scar. Everyone had a heartache that was deeply hidden. The zither music ended. Lin Zhen lightly clapped his hands, then asked tentatively, "Can I speak now?" Sunflower Scar wasn't in a good mood. She lowered her head and said calmly, "Didn't you say it already? I admire your music very much. But there's one thing, and that's that a woman's desire is different from man's. A man's pursuit of a higher peak is his life's motivation, while a woman is more emotional. Today, your performance has given me a different understanding of you." Sunflower Scar laughed mockingly. "I didn't think that the female demon king in your eyes would also be someone with a bitter life. You'd best put away your cheap sympathy and pity. I, Sunflower Scar, have never needed that." After saying this, she turned her gaze to Lin Zhen. "Did you just come here to listen to the zither? Or did you come here to kill me and challenge me?" Lin Zhen paused. "Why do you say that?" Sunflower Scar laughed coldly. "Aren't you very close to that senior apprentice brother of yours? Don't think that I don't know what those shameless people are thinking. They just want to join hands and eliminate me when the Eternal Mountain descends. Could it be that you're not in cahoots with them?" Lin Zhen wanted to defend himself, but he didn't know what to say. Tell him to stop dreaming. This is Fantasy Town. I'm currently second in points. If they eliminate me once, I can come back again. Unless they can eliminate me more than 3 or 4 times in a row, they won't have a chance. Sunflower Scar stood up after saying this. Her cold eyes fell on Lin Zhen. "If you want to join them and attack me, I'll accompany you to the end." After saying this, she didn't give Lin Zhen a chance to say anything. She put away her zither and jumped out of the watchtower. Watching Sunflower Scar's beautiful figure disappear into the night sky, Lin Zhen once again noticed Sunflower Scar's weakness. This woman was overconfident and underestimated the ferocity of her opponents. Golden Rock and the others didn't just want to eliminate her. Their real goal was to kill her completely. Chapter 13:07. The battle in the town had finally reached its climax. On this day, all the experts gathered together and began to separate and encircle the demonic beasts. The person in charge of the first assault was Lin Zhen. The reason they hadn't been able to break through was because they couldn't find the attacker. The attacker needed to attract the attention of the king-class monsters and separate them from the Tiger King. This would make it easier for the others to surround and kill the Tiger King. To surround and kill the Tiger King, the powerful Golden Rock Patriarch and the powerful Sunflower Scar had to be present. Apart from the two of them, the others couldn't shoulder the responsibility of the assault. Lin Zhen's appearance was just right. After discussing the details with Golden Rock Patriarch and the others, Lin Zhen accepted the task. Before Lin Zhen left, Golden Rock Patriarch patted him on the shoulder. "Junior brother, you have a great responsibility. Aside from the Tiger King, there is still the Dragon King, the Snake King, the Monkey King, the Dog King, the Ox King, and the Horse King. You have to lure all 6 of them away at once and prevent them from returning. Only then can we focus on killing the Tiger King. You should know that the Dominator-level beasts are too powerful. If we're disturbed by the other Dominator-level beasts, we might all be wiped out. Lin Jun nodded. Senior brother, don't worry. Since I've accepted this task, I won't let the monsters return unless I'm eliminated. Even if I am, I'll come back immediately. The Golden Rock nodded in satisfaction. Then, he said in a low voice, if you kill a king-level monster, all the rewards will be yours alone. As for the Tiger King's rewards, he will also leave you a share. If you have the chance, remember to come back. Don't forget that we still have something important to do. Lin Jun also understood tacitly. He nodded in agreement and left. After Lin Jun left, everyone was waiting for him. At this time, all the experts, including Sunflower Scar, were gathered together. Seeing Lin Jun leave, Sealing Saber Ancestor muttered unwillingly, it's best if this kid gets eliminated 8 to 10 times. He'll lose so badly that he won't even be able to win. Golden Rock glared at him. Shut up. Don't show your emotions so casually. No one likes you here. Sealed Saber Ancestor was only afraid of the Golden Rock, so he simply shut his mouth. Sunflower Scar looked at these people and remained silent. Over the past few days, according to various sources, there would probably be a super battle in the Beast King prison. The 12 Zodiac Beast Tide. This Tiger King was a super beast from the Beast King prison. The so-called super battle was a battle between sovereigns and super demonic beasts. This kind of battle could even lead to the death of a sovereign. Once a sovereign died, his divine crystal would return to the primal chaos and automatically head to the Mountain of Eternity and descend upon the dark light world. Once the Mountain of Eternity descended, it would be time for the pseudo-dominators to turn against each other. In the face of a divine item like the Sovereign God Crystal, these pseudo-sovereigns would definitely go all out to kill it. At that time, Sunflower Scar knew that they would attack him. However, before that, they probably wouldn't do anything. After all, they still needed to kill the Tiger King, and Sunflower Scar himself also needed to kill the Tiger King to obtain the reward. It all depended on when the Eternal Mountain would descend. While everyone was lost in their own thoughts, Lin Jun had already arrived at the demonic beast gathering area in the town. The demonic beast tide that used to densely cover the town had already mostly disappeared. Only the town was still occupied by demonic beasts. Lin Jun arrived in front of the town's entrance. With a swing of his spear, he directly shattered the dilapidated door and startled the demonic beasts inside. The first one to charge out and attack Lin Jun was a king-ranked demonic beast. Horse King. The Horse King was a pitch-black unicorn. It was over 3 meters tall and abnormally majestic. Its entire body was pitch black. Only its 4 hooves were white. Flames raged beneath its feet, and its blood-red eyes gave it a dense, killing intent. A king-ranked demonic beast had the strength of a peak pseudo-dominator. Seeing the Horse King charge over, Lin Jun didn't retreat. Instead, he stood firmly in a bow stance. His entire body was covered in armor. Facing the Horse King's charge, he directly raised his spear to meet it. Star Spear Technique. 5-time stacking. Lin Jun's godly power utilization rate was 100%. Although at the pseudo-dominator level, many people would learn how to utilize godly power to minimize the consumption of godly power. No one could do what Lin Jun did and not waste a single bit of godly power. Therefore, his 5-time stacking was a true 5-time stacking. When all the power was concentrated at one point, the power was destructive. Even a powerful demonic beast like the Horse King couldn't withstand it and was pierced through by Lin Jun's spear. Pooh! The Horse King's thick neck was pierced through by the spear. The explosive power caused its flesh to become a bloody mess. However, its body's inertia still caused it to fiercely crash into Lin Jun's body. With a rumbling sound, Lin Jun's body flew backwards. His godly body's energy had been depleted by about 7%. This 7% wasn't enough to cause serious damage. Lin Jun quickly pulled out his golden eagle sword. After attaching gold to it, He fiercely slashed at the wound caused by the limestone spear. Amidst the flying flesh and blood, the Horse King's miserable cry rang out. A pseudo-dominator-level demonic beast had been killed by Lin Jun. The last bit of godly body's energy disappeared. The Horse King fell to the ground, leaving behind a pile of gold and silver-colored pearls. Lin Jun raised his hand and collected them. The total number of pearls exceeded 8,000. Lin Jun was overjoyed. After obtaining these pearls, he now had over 30,000 pearls. He already had his eyes on an item, but the exchange price was very expensive. 100,000 energy pearls. This item wasn't anything else but a fragment of time law. It was the same as the fragment that lonely star fishing old man had given him. Lin Jun felt that the two could even be combined. Lin Jun's time law cultivation had already completed acceleration and deceleration. However, he still hadn't comprehended time stop. If he couldn't comprehend time stop, then he wouldn't be able to comprehend the more profound time reversal. Therefore, Lin Jun had to obtain this fragment. 32,000. I still need 68,000 energy pearls. I wonder if I'll be able to obtain this fragment before the beast wave ends? I have to do my best to obtain it. This is also why I came back to accept this seemingly arduous and thankless mission. Lin Jun needed to kill even more demonic beasts. Killing the Horse King alone was his best opportunity. This was because the next 5 demonic beast kings had already appeared. Lin Jun wouldn't have another chance to kill them alone. However, Lin Jun still remembered his mission. He unleashed all of his abilities, fighting from afar and close range to lure the 5 king-class demonic beasts over. During this process, Lin Jun's godly body's energy had dropped below 30%. However, he had finally succeeded. Chapter 1308. In front of him was a storm of blood and gore. Countless demonic beasts attacked in front of him, causing Lin Jun to be caught in the toughest battle of his life. Lin Jun's divine body was extremely strong. Not only was his energy value high, but his defense was also top-notch, especially after fusing with the Black Tortoise gene. However, there were 5 king-class demonic beasts in front of him. The soaring golden dragon, the poisonous demonic snake, the rampaging bull demon king, the ferocious evil hound, and the giant violent ape. Each demonic beast was not easy to kill, not to mention the countless elite demonic beasts. Lin Jun fought hard, killing a group of elite demonic beasts. When the Dog King's HP was low, he was finally eliminated for the first time. He had lost half his points, but he had gained a lot of energy orbs. His original ranking of 66th had now fallen out of the top 100. Lin Jun wasn't annoyed. He used another golden hammer and entered the town of illusions. Lin Jun entered the fantasy town again, where he had just been eliminated. He immediately entered the battle again. This time, Lin Jun concentrated all his firepower and attacked the evil hound with all his might. As for the rest of the attacks, Lin Jun took them all head-on. He was like a super warrior with high HP and defense. He withstood all the attacks for almost 3 minutes, and before he was eliminated for the second time, he killed the Dog King. Almost 10,000 energy orbs entered his account, and Lin Jun was eliminated for the second time. His ranking had dropped to around 200, but it was all worth it. After killing the Dog King, there were only 4 king-class demonic beasts left. Lin Jun's pressure was greatly reduced. Lin Jun was not worried about returning to the fantasy town again. Before he came, everyone gave him 2 pieces of high-grade equipment for him to use. Lin Jun entered the fantasy town again and continued to fight. Once, twice, and thrice he was continuously eliminated. After fighting for more than an hour, Lin Jun killed the Snake King, which had low energy orbs. This was something only Lin Jun could accomplish. If it were someone else, they wouldn't have enough lethality if their divine body's energy value was high, and they wouldn't be able to withstand the attacks of so many demonic beasts. It was impossible for them to accomplish this. After killing the Snake King, Lin Jun no longer had to deal with the poison. The pressure on Lin Jun lessened a little. Next, what he needed to do was to kill the violent Ape King, who had an agile attack. Although the battle was still difficult, there was more and more hope. The battle against the Tiger King was extremely intense. The Tiger King was a Dominator rank beast, and its strength was comparable to a Dominator. Even if its intelligence was lacking, it wasn't something that one or two pseudo-dominators could fight against. It was impossible to besiege the Tiger King without making huge sacrifices. The Golden Rock Patriarch displayed his extraordinary strength. His divine body transformed into a gigantic Kuan Pung and resisted the Tiger King's attack head-on. At the same time, Sunflower Scar also displayed unparalleled lethality. Silver threads densely covered the area, forming a silver river. This was her top gray domain equipment, Milky Way. Amidst the Milky Way, the Sunflower Scar was like a beautiful river god, constantly causing waves of damage to the Tiger King. Every time the Golden Rock Patriarch couldn't hold on any longer, Xinghe and the others would take turns to attack. When they couldn't hold on any longer, the other pseudo-dominators, who had long since been prepared, would step forward dauntlessly. Apart from the top few experts, many others had already died countless times. Their mission was to be cannon fodder, responsible for attracting the Tiger King's attention and taking the initiative to die. If this wasn't Fantasy Town, their chances wouldn't be high. After all, they couldn't restart after dying. However, with unlimited revivals, the Tiger King's chances weren't high. Although it had killed many cannon fodder, its intelligence wasn't enough. Its divine body's energy was constantly being damaged, and it would be exhausted sooner or later. Seeing that the Tiger King's divine body's energy had dropped below 30%, everyone prepared themselves. Once the Tiger King died, everyone was ready to snatch the energy beads. Fall for me, the last Dragon King. In a corner of the town, Lin Jun exploded with sixfold power and ruthlessly bombarded the Dragon King's head. The dragon's head shattered. The beast was dead. More than 11,000 energy beads were a great harvest for Lin Jun. 80,000. I already have 80,000 energy beads. I'm only 20,000 away from exchanging them for a fragment of time laws of nature. Although Lin Jun's ranking had dropped to around 3,000, he didn't care at all. He immediately increased his speed and rushed toward the encirclement of the Tiger King. By the time Lin Jun arrived, the Tiger King's divine body's energy was almost depleted. Coming early is better than coming at the right time. I actually managed to catch up to this wave. Lin Jun didn't hesitate to enter the fray, but at that moment, the Tiger King died. Golden Rock and the others had rich experience fighting Dominator-level beasts. With everyone's combined efforts, they finally defeated the Tiger King. It seemed to have been killed by Sunflower Scar, but at that moment, no one was paying attention to that. Everyone was rushing toward the energy beads. Lin Jun's rapid charge didn't make it in time to kill the Tiger King, but it happened to be in time for the energy beads to explode. Golden light flashed in front of him. Lin Jun knew it was a golden bead. Without hesitation, he opened his hand. Divine World Gravity. Lin Jun directly grabbed half of the golden bead at the very center. He only had time to stretch out his hand once. Then, light flashed in front of him, and all the energy beads were snatched clean in a second. Lin Jun looked and was overjoyed. In the last attempt, he had actually obtained 22,000 energy beads. At that moment, the surrounding people finally stopped. Almost everyone looked at Lin Jun with unfriendly eyes. They had been fighting for hours and had suffered countless casualties. In the end, Lin Jun had snatched the majority of the spoils. Of course, there would be people who felt it was unfair. Lin Jun didn't care what others thought of him. He directly opened Fantasy Town's store in exchange for his spoils. 100,000 points. The second fragment of Time Laws of Nature was in his hands. With the item in hand, Lin Jun let out a long breath. His efforts throughout the day had not been in vain. He had finally obtained this fragment. There was hope for him to cultivate Time Stop. Although Patriarch Golden Rock was also a little unhappy, he still came to Lin Jun's side and said with a smile, "Junior brother, you've worked hard this time. You deserve these energy beads." No one dares to say anything. After saying that, Patriarch Golden Rock looked at Purple Xinghe and the others. "Don't you guys agree? We're all comrades in the same trench." Purple Xinghe and the others understood Patriarch Golden Rock's meaning. He was trying to rope in Lin Jun and prepare to join forces with him to attack Sunflower Scar. The few of them understood and put away their unhappy feelings. They laughed and came to Patriarch Golden Rock and Lin Jun's side, looking like good friends and brothers. The scene immediately became a situation of two sides. On one side, there was Patriarch Golden Rock, Lin Jun, and the other men. On the other side, there was Sunflower Scar's lone woman. Chapter 1309. For a moment, the atmosphere was incomparably heavy. Everyone was silent, but secretly, everyone was accumulating their strength. The battle could start at any time. Lin Jun looked at Golden Rock and the others, then suddenly said, "The Eternal Mountain hasn't descended yet, right?" The heavy atmosphere instantly disappeared. Yes, it was said that the Eternal Mountain would descend, but it hadn't. Wasn't it a little too early to fight with Sunflower Scar? Golden Rock Ancestor frowned slightly. He originally wanted to get rid of Sunflower Scar as soon as possible. Now, that Lin Jun was here, he was very confident. But he didn't expect Lin Jun to suddenly say something like that. This was undoubtedly a statement. Things had changed out of nowhere, and Lin Jun's words made sense. It seemed that today wasn't a good time to make a move. Perhaps he should give his junior brother some benefits and wait until the Eternal Mountain descended. You're right. The beast tide is over. Everyone go back and wait patiently. It'll probably happen in a few years. Do what you need to do. Xinghe and the others looked at each other and silently turned to leave. They knew that Golden Rock Ancestor didn't plan to personally make a move. Perhaps he had some scruples. And if Golden Rock and Lin Jun didn't make a move, it wouldn't be easy to deal with Sunflower Scar. The battle that was about to happen suddenly subsided. Lin Jun didn't seem to have any self-awareness of disrupting the situation. He stretched his waist and caught up with Sealing Blade Ancestor, who was about to leave. "I want to challenge you to decide the ownership of the 80 times cultivation spot under your butt." Sealing Blade Ancestor glared at Lin Jun. "Kid, don't go too far." Lin Jun sneered. "What? You can challenge me, but I can't challenge you? If you don't agree, I'll beat you until you agree." Sealing Blade Ancestor looked at Golden Rock Ancestor, but Golden Rock ignored his request. Not only did he ignore it, but he also added, "In the world of martial artists, strength is respected. Lin Jun's request is reasonable." Sealing Blade, think about it. Sealing Blade's expression changed several times like a chameleon. Finally, his gaze fell on Tianxing. "I challenge you." Fantasy Town had one 100x cultivation point and 4 80x cultivation points. Only the top 5 could have spot. Previously, Feng Dao was ranked 4th and Tianxing was ranked 5th. Now that Lin Jun had taken one, Sealing Saber Old Ancestor could only settle for the next best thing, which was Tianxing's cultivation point. Although Tianxing did not wanna, there was nothing he could do since he was not as strong as Yifutian. In the end, he could only go to the 70 times cultivation spot to cultivate. Lin Jun seemed to be very grateful for the Golden Rock Old Ancestor's words. He bowed to him and said, "Thank you for your understanding, senior brother. In the future, if senior brother needs anything, junior brother will do his best." Golden Rock Patriarch's face lit up with joy. It seemed like this move was indeed effective. He believed that when the Eternal Mountain descended, Lin Jun wouldn't have any more excuses. He would definitely help him eliminate Sunflower Scar and obtain the Sovereign God Crystal. After forcibly occupying 80 times the cultivation points, Lin Jun began to cultivate. He knew that these peaceful days were only temporary. Although he had temporarily resolved the battle today, that day would eventually come. When the Eternal Mountain descended, no one would have the power to stop it. Their ambitions would explode. To side with the Golden Rock or with Sunflower Scar was a difficult choice. If he sided with Golden Rock and the others, he would definitely win. If he joined forces with Sunflower Scar, 2 against 5, he would still lose. Lin Jun sighed softly and made a decision in his heart. No one knew when the Eternal Mountain would descend, so Lin Jun chose 80 times the cultivation points to maximize the effects of his cultivation. He had a few directions for his cultivation. One was to continue to break through to the peak of High God. However, this process was too difficult. It was more than 10 times harder to go from late high god to peak high god than it was to go from mid high god to late high god. There was not enough time. Aside from increasing his realm, there was also the cultivation of overlaying battle techniques and fragments of temporal edicts. This time, Lin Jun chose to comprehend temporal edicts. He took out 2 fragments of edicts and gently placed them together, forming the shape of a crescent moon. There were a few words on it. Countercurrent disk. Half of the word disk was missing. Only by finding the remaining 1/3 would a complete countercurrent disk be formed. If I can find the remaining part, I can really reverse the flow of time. Lin Jun sighed and began to comprehend temporal edicts. The Sea of Constellations, Dark Light Realm, and Beast King Prison had a different flow of time compared to other places. The orbits of the constellations were chaotic and complicated. Almost no one could truly understand the intersection of day and night. Sometimes it would be a dozen hours a day. Sometimes it would be a few hundred hours a day. The flow of time here was normal. However, if one mistakenly entered a strange place, it would cause time to slow down or accelerate. Only in the dimensional universe could artificial intelligence analyze the specific flow of time and provide some help to cultivators. Above Lin Jun's hands, there was an undetectable undercurrent surging. If one looked at it with a high-power microscope, they would be able to see the movement of a bacterium. This bacterium moved forward a little, then suddenly took large strides forward. After taking a few steps, it suddenly stopped. This was the effect of the different flow of time on his hands. This bacterium was naturally simulated in the Town of Illusions. Lin Jun wanted to use it to test his temporal edicts. When he could make this bacterium stop moving forever, his comprehension of the edicts would be considered a success. 80 times his cultivation points was indeed very impressive. In addition, Lin Jun had used the overlay fragment for another year. The speed of his cultivation points had reached 160 times. Only in this way could Lin Jun be able to comprehend the edicts quickly. He knew that time was running out. The time in the outside world and Lin Jun's time formed an extremely strong contrast. It was even more than a day in heaven and a year on earth. If an arrow were to be shot at Lin Jun from a distance, it would take several hours for it to reach his throat from 3 feet away. Even after coming into contact with his skin, he would only feel pain after half an hour. This was because Lin Jun didn't only cultivate the temporal field, he also set up a spatial field where he was. Although it was only 3 feet in radius, it was enough to protect him from any sudden attacks. Time flowed by. Lin Jun entered his 2nd full year of cultivation. Only 1 year had passed in the outside world. However, in his world, more than 200,000 years had passed. In this year, Lin Jun had already come into contact with the edge of stopping time. He used the remaining 2,000 energy beads in his hand to exchange for another overlay fragment. Chapter 13:10. There were many things in the world that did not go according to one's wishes, but occasionally, the heavens would fulfill one's wishes. Lin Jun was once worried that the eternal mountain would descend and a battle would break out when he failed to achieve anything in his cultivation. That would be very disadvantageous to him. But this time his luck was good. Halfway through the 2nd year, Lin Jun completed the cultivation of Time Stop. This year and a half was equivalent to nearly 400,000 years of cultivation. Moreover, Lin Jun had been blessed by the universe's origin twice. His comprehension was far superior to ordinary people. That was why he could master the extremely complicated and difficult time stop law. Within his palms, 2 streams of air slowly merged together. In the center, the tiny bacterium maintained absolute stillness and did not move at all. It's done. Lin Jun opened his eyes, which shone brightly. He had finally comprehended time stop. This was different from the primordial realm's new territories, and even different from the specific galaxies of the demonic planet. This was the true universe's time law. From now on, he could use time acceleration, deceleration, and time stop anywhere. This time law can also be used in battle. Unless it's someone whose divine power is above mine, I can toy with my opponent to death just by time stop. But this is still not enough. The combination of time and space can form a domain space that can freeze everything in this space-time and become eternal. This is the goal of my cultivation. Lin Jun had already determined the direction of his cultivation. It was the perfect combination of time and space. Although this was not easy, it was much easier than comprehending time stop. Lin Jun was confident that he could do it in a month or two. Lin Jun immediately immersed himself in new cultivation. A month later, the weather changed. At the top of Fantasy Town was the endless sky. The 80 sovereign positions were the foundation of Fantasy Town. Every sovereign position looked like an unreachable star from the inside of the town. That night, a star suddenly dimmed. Almost all the people in the small town noticed this at the first moment. Almost everyone came out of their cultivation spots and looked up at the star that disappeared in the sky. Patriarch Golden Rock narrowed his eyes. His fingers could not help but tremble slightly. Finally, a sovereign has died. Each star represented a sovereign. If the sovereign was alive, then the star would light up. If the corresponding sovereign died, then the star would disappear and be annihilated. This also represented an opportunity for the quasi-sovereigns in Fantasy Town. Because a sovereign's death, their divine crystal would return to the Eternal Mountain and descend here. This was why the quasi-sovereigns all gathered here. They were waiting for an opportunity that would only appear once in a lifetime to fight for the highest position. Sealing Saber Ancestor carefully examined the corpse. The one who died was a water dominator named Zam. The surrounding people became restless. At this moment, these high and mighty pseudo-dominators were no longer calm. When faced with something that was too important, they would also be agitated. They would worry about gains and losses like ordinary people. Although the one who died was not one of the 9 special sovereigns, the elemental sovereign's divine crystal was still incomparably precious. Special sovereigns might not die even once in a few billion years. The last sovereign of birds to die was almost 10 billion years ago. Therefore, the divine crystal of these elemental sovereigns was their ultimate goal. Moreover, water was a relatively common element. Of the quasi-sovereigns present, at least 7 or 8 were proficient in the water element. In other words, no matter who obtained the divine crystal, they would be able to refine it without any hindrance. Now, the only problem in front of them was the point rankings. Once a sovereign died, the Eternal Mountain would descend within 3 days. At that time, only the top 30 quasi-sovereigns would be able to ascend the Eternal Mountain to fight for it. Although many people knew that even if they entered the top 30, they would not have much of a chance. Who would want to seize this slim chance? In the battle against Tiger King, Golden Rock, and the other expert subordinates had died many times. Many of them had fallen out of the top 30. Now, everyone had a chance. If they wanted to quickly rise in the rankings, the only way was to kill other quasi-sovereigns, eliminate others, obtain points, and enter the Eternal Mountain. This was what everyone was thinking. Finally, someone in the crowd made the first strike. This person had made a move on his companion. Usually, the two of them would cultivate together and fight together. It was precisely because of this that he did not have his guard up against this person and was the best target to make a move on. Without any hindrance, he directly chopped off his comrade's head. Then his godly power exploded, and he was killed. His comrade was easily eliminated from the fantasy town. This person obtained a large amount of points, and his ranking shot up. This strike was like the fuse that ignited a barrel of gunpowder. The situation went out of control. Everyone did not trust the people around them. At this time, there was nowhere to run. The only way was to kill others. The entire town shook violently. There were people fighting everywhere. Rays of white light, representing death, shot into the sky. The Divine Monument's rankings jumped up and down like crazy. 1 second, they killed someone and their ranking shot up. The next second, they were killed and their ranking quickly fell. Those who killed others continued to fight. Those who were eliminated were not willing to lose their chance. They would use their high-grade equipment and enter the fantasy town again. This cycle continued until all their equipment was used up and they were temporarily unable to enter. The equipment that these pseudo-dominators had accumulated over time was quickly used up. Countless pieces of equipment that they regarded as treasures became consumables and tools for battle. The moment the battle began, a few of the top-ranked people took their subordinates and quickly retreated. They did their best to avoid being involved in the chaotic battle. However, they could not completely avoid it. The pseudo-dominators were infected by the fanatical atmosphere. Adding on the fact that they had equipment to use, they even dared to attack the top-ranked people, including old ancestor Goldenrock. They had no choice but to attack and kill all those who dared to provoke them. The town had close to 100,000 pseudo-dominators. Under the crazy consumption, their numbers began to decrease. 90,000, 80,000, 70,000. In less than an hour, there were less than 30,000 pseudo-dominators left in the fantasy town. Those who were eliminated either did not have any equipment in their hands or only had one piece of equipment left. They were unwilling to enter. Entering meant death. They might as well wait for the Eternal Mountain to end and come back to train. Some people began to give up. However, those who were ranked at the top, those who felt that they still had a chance, and those who were still armed, were still fighting for their lives. Chapter 13:11. This kind of battle was a competition of willpower, strength, and wealth. Although top experts like Patriarch Goldenrock and Sunflower Scar were hard to kill, their subordinates might not be able to do the same. The other pseudo-dominators fought desperately, eliminating their subordinates time and time again. This way, their subordinates completely lost the chance to enter the Eternal Mountain. If they lost the chance, others would have a chance. Even if Goldenrock and the others were rich, they couldn't support the continuous deaths of their subordinates. In the end, they even gave up on reviving their subordinates. They only hoped that they wouldn't be killed. This kind of crazy battle lasted for nearly 3 days. Those who had money could hold on, but those who didn't could not. In the last 2 days, 29,000 of the remaining 30,000 people were eliminated. There were no more weapons to enter Fantasy Town. Although the remaining few hundred people were still fighting sporadically, they weren't enough to pose a threat to the top experts. They took out their weapons and summoned their subordinates back to the town, completely guaranteeing their safety. Then, it was time for the experts to counterattack. They led their people to fight back, eliminating those who resisted stubbornly. As time passed, the town gradually quieted down. Some people returned, but they left the town completely. This attitude meant that they had given up on fighting. It didn't matter anymore. They had experienced this many times. If they didn't have the chance this time, they would cultivate well and work hard to raise their ranking. They would wait for the next opportunity. In the end, there were less than 100 people left fighting. Patriarch Goldenrock had 5 or 6 people, and Sunflower Scar, Purple Shingha, and the others were about the same. The remaining people were Lone Rangers. Even if they could enter the top 30, they wouldn't be much of a threat. The craziest period had passed. It was almost time to reap the fruits of victory. Patriarch Goldenrock stopped and looked up at the sky. He saw a shadow appear in the distant sky. The huge shape and the terrifying pressure indicated that this was the Eternal Mountain that everyone was looking forward to. Patriarch Goldenrock smiled. "It's here. The shadow has appeared. The Eternal Mountain will descend here in an hour. When it arrives, the fighting here must stop. The top 30 can climb the mountain." Everyone's eyes were filled with fanaticism. There was only 1 hour left before they would decide who would go up the mountain. The Goldenrock Patriarch looked left and right, but did not see Lin Jun. He could not help but frown slightly. Why is this fellow acting so unreliable at this time? If he doesn't come, my chances of obtaining the ruler's divinity crystal will be reduced by at least half. However, at this moment, he couldn't care less. Patriarch Goldenrock looked around him and saw that Zi Xinghe and the others were also looking at him. Goldenrock Old Ancestor nodded slightly, indicating that Zi Xinghe should act according to the original plan. Their plan was to attack Sunflower Scar at this time. The details of the plan had been studied countless times to ensure that it was flawless. Zi Xinghe was the first to step forward. He faced the scattered paragons around him and said, "The top few of us are going to have a showdown. It's best if you don't participate. It won't do you any good." The rest of the people took a step back to show their attitude. At this time, they also knew that they couldn't eliminate the top few, so they might as well focus on the other competitors. After saying this, Xinghe walked towards Sunflower Scar. When he was 10 meters away from Sunflower Scar, Xinghe stopped and looked at the beautiful woman with a mocking gaze. His meaning was self-evident. Sunflower Scar sneered and waved his hand to signal his women to step back. Facing Xinghe's provocation, he said indifferently, "Don't think that I'll be afraid of you just because you're standing in front of me. I already know what you're planning. However, trash like you alone is not enough to challenge me. Who else wants to participate? Come at me together." What a sharp-tongued brat. You think you're the second best in the world just because you're ranked second on the divine steel? This old man is not convinced. "I also want to meet you." Feng Dao ancestor hugged Qiu Shuihan and walked to Xinghe's side. After being defeated by Lin Jun, he no longer used his scabbard. He always maintained his strongest state. If he and Xinghe joined forces, they would be able to challenge Sunflower Scar. And me, Sunflower Scar, you've been domineering for long enough. As a man, I'm not willing to be suppressed by you. Today, I'll settle the score with you. Tianxing also walked over and stood beside Xinghe and Feng Dao ancestor. Getting rid of the witch is satisfying. How can I be left out at a time like this? The tall and burly Shan Sure also walked over and stood with the three of them. Aside from Golden Rock Ancestor, who was ranked first, the four people ranked third, fourth, fifth, and sixth were collectively challenging the second place. This was very rare in the history of Fantasy Town. It must have been discussed long ago. Sunflower Scar looked at the four experts opposite him without the slightest fear. "Good. The four of you can come to me together. However, I have to remind you that if you want to eliminate me, you'll have to be careful of being eliminated by me. Hee. You won't shed tears until you see the coffin. Sunflower Scar, today is the day you die." Xinghe was the one who was the most dissatisfied with Sunflower Scar. He was the first to attack. His weapon was a purple radiant sword. It was said that it was formed naturally when the purple chi came from the east. It was a top-grade weapon. With a shake of his long spear, he charged at Sunflower Scar like a bolt of lightning. Sunflower Scar raised his hand, and a light green long sword appeared in his hand. He fought with Purple Xinghe. A battle between top experts would not necessarily last long. Purple Xinghe thought that he was on par with Sunflower Scar. However, when the battle began, he realized that he was no match for Sunflower Scar. In a short period of time, he was at a disadvantage. He could hardly believe it. "Come and help me." Purple Xinghe shouted for help. "Brother, don't panic. Let's take care of this brat together." Sealing Blade Ancestor drew his sword and joined the battle. In a situation where it was 2 against 1, the situation was suddenly reversed. The pressure on Purple Xinghe was greatly reduced. However, even if the two of them worked together, it was difficult to take down Sunflower Scar. The three of them attacked and defended each other. The two of them still could not gain the upper hand. The witch is indeed powerful. However, today is the day you die. It ends here. Tianxing and Shan Sure drew their weapons at the same time and joined the battle. The four experts besieged Sunflower Scar from all four directions. In the eyes of others, Sunflower Scar would not be able to resist. However, the situation on the battlefield was enough to make people's eyes pop out. The four of them attacked together, but they still could not take down Sunflower Scar. Golden Rock Ancestor was shocked. This woman was so strong that it would not be easy for the four of them to defeat her. They had to eliminate her as soon as possible. Chapter 13:12. In the town, the battle between the five of them was like a battlefield with thousands of soldiers and horses. Houses collapsed, the ground cracked, and lava spewed out from the earth's core. The airflow in the sky was stirred up by the intense battle. The wind and clouds rolled, and the killing intent surged. The four men attacked with all their might. Sunflower Scar clenched her teeth and held on. Although the situation was extremely difficult, Sunflower Scar, as a woman, had cultivated to this level. Her determination and perseverance far exceeded that of ordinary people. She did not panic. She patiently waited for an opportunity. After all, the four of them were not one person. In a situation where they were surrounded and had the advantage, there would definitely be someone who would rush forward. She firmly believed this. After 3 minutes of battle, such an opportunity finally appeared. The one who made the mistake was Tianxing. Wind-sealing blade ancestor used autumn water chill to force Sunflower Scar back. Tianxing saw his chance. Tianxing quickly followed and charged forward. The thunder and lightning blades in his hands slashed out. Sunflower Scar, it's over. Seeing Tianxing's attack, Sunflower Scar, who was in a sorry state, smiled. Her body, which had been rapidly retreating, made a nimble turn in the air. Defying the laws of physics, she forcibly stopped her retreat. Like this, before nature's blade could be fully used, she was already in front of Sunflower Scar. Clang! Sunflower Scar blocked Purple Xingha's sword chi with her sword. Her slender left hand reached out and grabbed nature's neck. It is indeed over. Kacha! Sunflower Scar twisted Tianxing's head off. The energy in her hand exploded, and Tianxing did not even have a chance to recover. Stupid girl, let go. Sealing blade ancestor attacked again, slashing with his long blade. This time, Sunflower Scar did not dodge. She forcibly took on the opponent's attacks and did her best to kill Tianxing. However, she also paid a heavy price. There were several large wounds on her back that were dripping with blood. Clearly, they could not be healed in a short period of time. However, it was impossible to kill Tianxing without paying a price. The four of them became three, and the pressure on Sunflower Scar decreased significantly. The muscles on their faces twitched. None of them had expected Sunflower Scar to be able to devise a counterattack in such a situation. Furthermore, he had managed to kill one of their opponents. This had changed the situation of the battle. However, the Golden Rock was watching. They had previously boasted in front of the Golden Rock that they would definitely be able to deal with Sunflower Scar. How could they give up so easily? The three of them charged forward once more. Home. Sunflower Scar knew that Tianxing would return soon. Suddenly, a golden sun rose behind him. No, not the sun. It was a golden sunflower. However, the sunflower was so bright that it was like a star right in front of them. It dazzled them. Just as they were using their psychic powers to spy on her, Sunflower Scar began her assault again. This time, her target was Mountain Rock. Under the cover of the silver threads, a domain was formed. Sealing Saber Ancestor and Purple Xingha desperately attacked her domain, but it was broken in 3 seconds. However, after breaking through the domain, he saw Mountain Rock's corpse turning into white light and disappearing. A trace of dark red blood flowed from the corner of Sunflower Scar's mouth. However, she still had a smile on her face. She had eliminated another person. Although she might be eliminated again in a while, Sunflower Scar was still very rich. She might not necessarily lose this battle of attrition. Besides, there wasn't much time left. On the other side, Purple Xingha and the others clearly understood this. In a while, the Eternal Mountain would descend. They might not have enough time to eliminate Sunflower Scar unless the Golden Rock Ancestor did it himself. The Golden Rock Ancestor clenched his fist slightly. He was considering whether or not he should do it himself. Just as he was in a dilemma, a person with a huge spear on his shoulder walked over from the dust cloud in the distance. Lin Jun. Seeing Lin Jun appear, the Golden Rock Ancestor was overjoyed. During this time, he had been extremely polite to Lin Jun. He hoped that Lin Jun would help him at this time. Lin Jun's arrival was really timely. Junior brother, you come at the right time. The Golden Rock Ancestor laughed and went over to welcome him. The few people who were fighting also stopped. At this moment, Tianxing and Mountain Rock had returned to the battlefield. However, they did not make a move. Everyone wanted to see which side Lin Jun wanted to join. Lin Jun's decision would directly affect the direction of the battle. Lin Jun walked to the side of the Golden Rock Ancestor and swept his sharp gaze around. He especially looked at Sunflower Scar for a while. Finally, he said to the Golden Rock Ancestor, "Senior brother, I'm sorry I'm late." Hearing Lin Jun's words, the Golden Rock Ancestor's heart finally relaxed. He let out a long sigh. It's fine. It's better to come at the right time than early. Junior brother, you come at the right time. This demoness is so arrogant that even Purple Xingha and the others can't take her down. Now that Junior brother is here, she can only wait to be captured. Lin Jun faced Sunflower Scar. He flicked the spear in his hand and pointed it at the other party. Sunflower Scar, your stubborn resistance may seem heroic, but it's actually something only idiots do. If you surrender now, I might let you live. Sunflower Scar looked at Lin Jun with contempt. I thought you might be different. Now, it seems that you're just like these despicable people. Come at me if you dare. Let's see if I'm afraid of you. Purple Xinghe also saw Lin Jun as a comrade and a strong ally. He came to Lin Jun's side and said, Lin Jun, this woman is stalling for time. The Eternal Mountain will descend soon. She's confident that she can stall for time and come back after being eliminated. We can't deplete her equipment in a short time, so that's the only way. He spoke very softly. Only Lin Jun could hear him. Lin Jun nodded gently. Don't worry. Since I'm here, I won't give her any chance to stall. It's time for this battle to come to an end. After receiving Lin Jun's guarantee, Purple Xinghe and the others were overjoyed. Go! Lin Jun roared. Purple Xinghe and the other three were reinvigorated. They charged at Sunflower Scar again. Sunflower Scar had no time to say anything else. He waved his sword and started fighting again. Lin Jun held his spear and slowly walked around, looking for a suitable opportunity. Behind him, Goldenrock Patriarch also stared at Lin Jun. Obviously, he still did not trust Lin Jun and was worried that he would suddenly betray them. If Lin Jun betrayed them, then Goldenrock Patriarch would have to join the battle. Otherwise, Purple Xinghe and the other three would have no chance of winning against Lin Jun and the other two. The battle between them was very intense. They were fighting with their lives on the line. Obviously, none of them were afraid of death here. They were all using their strength to the fullest. Just as Sunflower Scar was about to run out of energy after blocking several attacks, Lin Jun waved his spear and charged into the battle. Sunflower Scar, die! Seeing Lin Jun turn into a flash of light and charge at Sunflower Scar, Goldenrock Patriarch let out a long sigh. Chapter 13:13. Lin Jun's attack was extraordinary. The bluestone spear was like a dragon, causing waves of air to roll. The first spear strike was the Overlord Spear technique, a spark of life. Before the spear even arrived, its shocking aura had already forced others to stay away. The rocks in front could not help but retreat, giving Lin Jun space to perform. Lin Jun had chosen the perfect time. This spear strike was when Sunflower Scar's power had dissipated and she had yet to recover. 4 times stacked, Inner Lion Mark. Roar. Sunflower Scar had nowhere to run. She raised her sword to block. Clang! Sparks flew between the spear and sword, and her long sword almost flew out of her hand. Although she had long known that Lin Jun was very strong, Sunflower Scar did not expect him to be so strong that she could not compete with him in terms of strength. Although Sunflower Scar's divine power was not much weaker than Lin Jun's, the difference in strength between men and women was huge. Moreover, every time Lin Jun fused with the gene stock, it was a mutated stock. This was something that no one could compare with. Every breakthrough was a perfect one, causing his strength to be outstanding. In addition, he could use 100% of his divine power. With all these factors combined, how could Sunflower Scar resist? The spear ruthlessly pierced Sunflower Scar's shoulder. At the critical moment, Sunflower Scar grabbed the spear to prevent Lin Jun's spear from piercing through. However, Lin Jun's feet exerted force, and his entire body shot forward like a cannonball. In front of them was a house. The two of them directly passed through the house and broke through a dozen walls. Finally, they stopped at a broken wall a few hundred meters away. In the end, Sunflower Scar could not block Lin Jun's spear. Her delicate body was firmly pinned to the wall. The thundercloud beneath Lin Jun's feet had already risen. His body was suspended in the air, and he held the spear with both hands. His face was as cold as ice. Behind him, a few streams of light quickly followed. Purple Xinghe and the others arrived one after another and stopped not far away. Ha ha! Lin Jun, brother Lin, you are really strong. You took care of this woman with one shot. Previously, we could not force her to this extent even if we fought to the death. Amazing, amazing. I, sure am convinced. Brother Lin, this be *TCH just eliminated me once, and I lost a lot of points. Can I kill her now and earn back my points? Lin Jun turned around and looked at Tian Xing, who had spoken last. He said coldly, "Although you lost points, your ranking did not drop. That's because those ranked 6th and below have all died several times. What do you need so many points for? Can't you see that I'm still a few thousand points away?" After being scolded by Lin Jun, Tian Xing smiled and didn't say anything else. This Lin Jun was not easy to talk to. Moreover, his strength was extremely strong. Although his ranking was not high, who would dare to look down on him? Didn't you see that the Golden Pung was very polite? The Golden Rock also came behind them and nodded. My junior brother is right. Sunflower Scar was defeated by him, so he should be the one to be eliminated. This way, he can directly enter the top 10 of the Divine Monument and participate in the Eternal Mountain competition. Don't fight with him. Lin Jun looked at Sunflower Scar, his eyes filled with killing intent. Sunflower Scar's shoulder was heavily injured, and she was being suppressed by the greenstone spear. She did not have much strength to fight back. Moreover, she did not want to fight back. At most, she would be eliminated. Anyway, she still had a lot of points. She could try again. However, Lin Jun looked at her for a while, and his eyes suddenly flashed with a lustful light. What are you doing? Sunflower Scar could not help but shiver. Hee hee, such a beautiful woman. It would be too easy for you to be eliminated so easily. How about you let me kiss you? Lin Jun did as he said. He suddenly pounced on Sunflower Scar and pressed her against the wall. His entire body was on top of her. Shameless. Ugh. Sunflower Scar was so embarrassed that she wanted to die. She was caught off guard and allowed Lin Jun to take advantage of her. Lin Jun even slammed into her vitals. Her eyes widened, and she stared at Lin Jun in disbelief and hatred. Goodbye, Lin Jun said. Then he suddenly stabbed the golden eagle sword into Sunflower Scar's chest. Ruthless destruction of a flower, death of a beauty. Sunflower Scar's figure disappeared from Fantasy Town. She had been eliminated. After losing some points, her ranking fell to 5th place, while Lin Jun's ranking rose to 4th. Currently, the Divine Monument's rankings were Golden Rock, Purple Xinghe, Old Ancestor Feng Dao, Lin Jun, Sunflower Scar, Tinxing, and Shanshi. Seeing this, Golden Rock and the others laughed loudly behind them. Ha ha! Junior brother, you've been cultivating for so many years. Why are you still so lustful? I admit that Sunflower Scar is a rare beauty, but you still have the mood to do so. You've really impressed me. I, Purple Xinghe, admire your sincerity. After a few words, Golden Rock suddenly became serious. Stop fooling around. Let's move on to the next step. Even if we lose some points, we'll still be ranked at the top. Now let's all go out to the real world and end Sunflower Scar once and for all. All right. The few of them agreed loudly. Golden Rock then said to Lin Jun, Junior brother, this time, we can't play around anymore. A long night means trouble. If we win this battle, you can have as many women as you want in the future. Lin Jun nodded. I know that very well. That's why I have to seize the opportunity to take advantage of her. Okay, let's go. At this moment, Golden Rock trusted Lin Jun completely. He led the others out of Fantasy Town. After leaving the town, everyone lost half of their points. However, their ranking did not change much because the points of those in 7th place and below were too few. After they left the town, they bumped into Sunflower Scar, who was about to enter the town. Sunflower Scar's beautiful face was flushed with anger. She already knew who Lin Jun was. Just now, she had been poked again. It reminded her of the moment when she was taken advantage of in the women's room. Lin Jun's characteristics were too obvious. Sunflower Scar would never forget that feeling. She was absolutely sure that the person she had poked was Lin Jun. Just as she was about to go back and continue fighting, she did not expect these people to come out together. Sunflower Scar's expression suddenly changed. An ominous premonition arose in her heart. What do you want to do? Purple Xinghe acted as the vanguard. He arrived in front of Sunflower Scar and smiled. What do we want to do? Can't you see it now? Sunflower Scar, your existence is in our way. This time, we have to solve the problem once and for all. Sealing Blade Ancestor also stepped forward. His face was filled with killing intent as he said, "Just now, everyone was not afraid of death. That's why you were able to use your full strength. This time, if you die, you die. Sunflower Scar, let's see how long you can jump around." Tianxing also fiercely said, "Sunflower Scar, this time, we have Lin Jun joining us. You should take advantage of this time to see this world. This will be the last few minutes of your life." After saying that, they surrounded him and prepared to attack. Seeing this scene, the surrounding quasi-dominators who had been waiting outside all hid, afraid that the flames of war would spread to them. This time, they were really going to fight. They were going to risk their lives. Chapter 13-14. This battle didn't even need to be fought. The result was already decided. Especially for the people participating in the battle, Sunflower Scar had no chance. Even if Patriarch Golden Rock didn't make a move, she might not be able to deal with Lin Jun alone, not to mention Purple Xinghe and the others. Moreover, Lin Jun had already proven his position in the battle. Sunflower Scar couldn't escape this calamity. In the distance, some of the quasi-rulers looked indignant, but they didn't dare to say anything. Lin Jun pointed his spear at Sunflower Scar. "Sunflower Scar, this isn't Fantasy Town. If you have any last wishes, just say them. I will find a way to fulfill them for you." Sunflower Scar looked at Lin Jun with bloodshot eyes. "You bastard! My wish is to kill you and eat your flesh. Can you fulfill it for me?" Lin Jun coldly snorted. "Then I'm very sorry, but you won't have the chance." After saying this, Lin Jun shook his spear and prepared to attack again. However, this time, Purple Xinghe and the others stepped forward first. "Brother Lin, you've already eliminated her once. You should give us a chance now. We've been in Fantasy Town for so many years, and we've suffered a lot from this woman. Today, we'll settle all our debts." Lin Jun took a step back and asked, "If I kill someone outside, will I get their points?" Purple Xinghe nodded. "Yes. Right now, the Eternal Mountain is descending. Even if you kill someone outside, you'll get half of their points. Furthermore, they won't have a chance to revive." "All right, then I'll give everyone a chance to get points. However, I might still make a move at a critical moment. It's just that I don't need any more points." After receiving Lin Jun's guarantee, Purple Xinghe and the others were overjoyed. With Lin Jun's help at any time, it was equivalent to giving them peace of mind. They could fight without any scruples. They said this to prove themselves. After all, the four of them had worked together, yet they still couldn't take down Sunflower Scar. This made them feel very embarrassed. It wasn't that the four of them weren't strong enough, but that Sunflower Scar was too cunning. They had underestimated him. This time, the four of them joined forces once again. They wouldn't give Sunflower Scar another chance. They had absolute confidence that they could deal with Sunflower Scar. The four of them surrounded him. Lin Jun retreated a bit and held his spear in his hand. He was ready to support the four of them at any time. Sunflower Scar gritted her teeth. She knew that today would probably be her last battle. There were four opponents and Lin Jun. Even the Golden Rock had not made a move. How could she win alone? However, she would never give in. Even if she had to die, she would die standing. She would never endure humiliation. Her subordinates couldn't help her at all. This was because the Golden Rock and the others had already received their orders. Before Sunflower Scar came out, all of them had already joined forces and killed Sunflower Scar subordinates. After coming out, Sunflower Scar found that none of her former subordinates were left. They were all dead. The scene was extremely cruel. Several great experts surrounded a single woman, making it hard for others to watch. However, no one dared to stand up and say anything. Anyone who did would be courting death. However, there was still one person who bravely stood up. It was a chubby baby-faced man. He stood not too far away and shouted at Lin Jun. "Lin Jun, bastard! A group of men bullying a woman. What kind of hero are you? I was blind to recognize you as my big brother. You don't deserve it." "Bah!" Lin Jun turned his head and saw a familiar face. Steam Bun. This young man from the planet race had a face full of excitement. He deeply detested Lin Jun's actions. The others didn't dare to speak, but Steamed Bun, who had a straightforward nature, cursed loudly. Unfortunately, no one responded to his shouts. Instead, many people looked at him with sympathy. Who was Lin Jun? In the battle in the town, Lin Jun had single-handedly fought all the king-level demonic beasts and solved the problem that had troubled everyone. In the hearts of the quasi-rulers of Fantasy Town, Lin Jun was at least one of the top 3 experts. Who dared to offend him? This hot-headed little fatty probably wouldn't even know how he died. Lin Jun was stunned for a moment. Then his expression turned cold. Ungrateful bastard. I gave you 2 pieces of equipment back then, but I don't have time to deal with you now. I'll leave your head with you for now. I'll definitely come back later to collect it. Steam Bun was instinctively afraid of Lin Jun's threats. However, he didn't like to admit defeat, and he still had a conscience. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been ostracized by everyone else. At this moment, he stubbornly held on, as if he was facing death with equanimity. Lin Jun glanced at him and didn't say anything. Then, he said to Purple Xinghe and the others, "What are you guys dawdling for? How much longer do you want to keep this woman alive?" Purple Xinghe and the others also trembled. They all felt a trace of fear towards Lin Jun. Several of them roared in unison as they launched a fierce assault on Sunflower Scar. Sunflower Scar was also going all out. She knew that she probably wouldn't have a chance to retaliate against Lin Jun, much less pose a threat to the Golden Rock. Her only hope was to kill one of them. If he killed one, he would make a profit. If he killed 2, he would make a profit. However, this time, the battle wasn't going to be so easy. Purple Xinghe and the others weren't much weaker than Sunflower Scar in the first place, let alone when the 4 of them worked together. Previously, they hadn't cooperated well enough and had underestimated the enemy. However, after the battle in Fantasy Town, everyone had a tacit understanding of each other. They wouldn't give Sunflower Scar another chance to set a trap. The 4 of them fought steadily and with perfect coordination. None of them were rash and greedy. They had to prove themselves and not let Lin Jun and the Golden Rock look down on them. Moreover, they had a tacit understanding in their hearts. When they reached the Eternal Mountain, the 4 of them had to work together to fight against Lin Jun and the Golden Rock. Otherwise, they would definitely be defeated one by one. Unknowingly, the 4 of them had become comrades on the same front. Of course, they wouldn't die here. As a result, Sunflower Scar had no chance at all. Her fighting methods were very rich. Among them, her strongest method was her zither music. However, she needed someone to cover for her to display its power. At this moment, she didn't have a single helper. Her zither music was useless, and Lin Jun was watching from the side. Sunflower Scar quickly fell into a disadvantageous position and fell into a bitter battle. After enduring another round of fierce attacks, Sunflower Scar felt that she couldn't hold on any longer. Forget it, forget it. After so many years of hard work, this is the result. The heavens are blind. Sunflower Scar looked up to the sky and sighed, tears rolling down her face. Father, Mother, your unfilial daughter wasn't able to protect your lives in the past. Our homeland is gone. Now that I'm no longer pursuing martial arts, there's no one in this world that I'm reluctant to part with. Rather than living on while at death's door, I'd rather reunite with you. Facing the sword light in front of him, Sunflower Scar's face revealed a resolute expression. Before I die, I'll drag these bastards down with me. Father, Mother, your daughter is here. Sunflower Scar's body suddenly shone with a divine light. He was about to self-destruct. Chapter 13:15. When a pseudo-dominator self-destructed, even a normal dominator expert would have to avoid it. Not to mention a super expert like Sunflower Scar. If Purple Xinghe and the other 3 didn't dodge in time, they might be killed in one fell swoop. Not good. Retreat. Xinghe roared. The 4 of them exerted all their strength and tried to flee into the distance. However, since Sunflower Scar wanted to self-destruct, she wouldn't give them a chance to escape. She activated her Milky Way domain and trapped the 4 of them. As long as she trapped them for a second, Sunflower Scar would be able to drag them all to hell. The 4 of them were scared out of their wits. They were confident that they could deal with this woman, but they didn't expect her to be so crazy as to use such a desperate move. They were too careless. A single mistake could lead to everlasting regret. It was too late for them to regret. Perhaps Golden Rock Ancestor would have a chance to save them, but they didn't dare to count on him. Sunflower Scar and the others dying together was probably what he wanted. With all his competitors dead, the Dominator God Crystal would be his. The surrounding people couldn't help but cover their eyes. No one had expected the battle to be so fierce. It was originally a simple battle for the rankings, but these pseudo-dominators who had cultivated for hundreds of millions of years were fighting to the death. At this critical moment, a sudden change occurred. High up in the sky, a huge mountain appeared out of nowhere. This mountain suddenly appeared, covering the entire sky and directly colliding with Sunflower Scar's Milky Way domain. The clash of top-grade domain equipment revealed who was superior. Sunflower Scar's Milky Way domain was a river of stars, while this mountain was a huge star system. Although they were both top-grade domain equipment, they weren't on the same level in terms of quality. As the mountain fell, the Milky Way collapsed. Sunflower Scar's domain was broken. Almost at the same time as the mountain, there was also a long spear that looked like a dragon soaring through the sky. It was Lin Jun. Lin Jun had used the mountain to break through Sunflower Scar's domain at the critical moment. Then, with a sudden attack from a spear, he reached Sunflower Scar's back in the blink of an eye. This spear was so fast that Sunflower Scar didn't even have the chance to self-destruct. Sunflower Scar was shocked as well. He no longer cared about self-destructing and raised his sword to block the attack. At the point where the spear and the sword clashed, energy currents surged, forming a temporary stalemate. Seeing the sudden change in the situation, Purple Xingha's group of 4, who had just escaped death, were overjoyed. "Brother Lin, you're the most reliable. Let's help you now." Several people quickly rushed over. They wanted to take advantage of the stalemate between Lin Jun and Sunflower Scar to make their move. They wanted to end Sunflower Scar once and for all. Among them, Sealing Saber Ancestor was the fastest. His entire body turned into a ray of light as he raised his autumn water saber. This saber was enough to cut Sunflower Scar in half. Sunflower Scar closed her eyes in despair. Her last chance was gone. She had no way of escaping Lin Jun's spear in a short amount of time. She had no way of defending herself against the enemy behind her. She wanted to give up. What joy was there in life? What fear was there in death? But at this moment, a strong force came from his hand. On the other side, Lin Jun's spear suddenly erupted with an astonishing strength. It actually forcibly knocked away Sunflower Scar's sword. Lin Jun's entire body, together with his spear, rushed forward. This spear whistled through the air, causing Sunflower Scar's clothes to flutter. Before even getting close, she knew that this spear was enough to kill her. Now, it all depended on whether Lin Jun's spear would stab Sunflower Scar to death first, or if Sealing Saber Ancestor Saber would come first. Judging from his speed and distance, Lin Jun should be the first to succeed. In the distance, Golden Rock Ancestor smiled. His plan was about to succeed. Once Sunflower Scar died, everything would be settled. As for Purple Xingha and the others, they slowed down their pace and even stopped attacking. They were no longer needed. Steam Bun revealed an angry expression. This was definitely not the Lin Jun he knew. But there was nothing he could do. He could only watch as Lin Jun slaughtered. Lin Jun and Sunflower Scar rapidly approached. As they approached, Lin Jun's wrist flicked. The tip of the bluestone spear swept past Sunflower Scar's waist. She could even feel the chill of the spear's shaft, but it didn't pierce her body. Startled, she opened her eyes abruptly, only to see Lin Jun's figure rapidly enlarging in front of her eyes. Then a large, fiery hand wrapped around her waist, pulling her directly into his embrace. Lin Jun held Sunflower Scar with one hand and held the spear with the other. Fivefold outer binding seal. A spark makes life easy. Pouring all of his divine power into the spear, it clashed head-on with Sealing Saber Ancestor's saber. Sealing Saber Ancestor originally wanted to take the credit and kill Sunflower Scar first. But he didn't expect that his opponent would suddenly be Lin Jun. At this moment, he even thought that Lin Jun was using his position to avenge a personal grudge. "Lin Jun, you dare!" It was too late to say anything. Sealing Saber Ancestor could only use all of his strength to block and have Golden Pung and Purple Shinga teach Lin Jun a lesson to prevent him from being too arrogant. Unfortunately, this process didn't even take a 10,000th of a second. Sealing Saber Ancestor's last-minute adjustments didn't have much of an effect. In a situation where he was unprepared, how could he block Lin Jun's all-out attack? He wanted to block, but Lin Jun wanted to take his life. Saber and spear collided. Heaven and earth split. Lin Jun's spear sent Sealing Saber Ancestor's saber flying. The spear tip ruthlessly pierced his chest. Lotus Bloom. The spear tip bloomed like a lotus and suddenly exploded on his chest. The vigorous petals were like shrapnel, carrying the energy of the 8 elements. They formed a chaotic airflow even fiercer than heavenly tribulation. Boom! Large chunks of flesh and bone flew through the air. Lin Jun's long-planned spear attack had produced an unparalleled killing power. On the spot, the third-ranked pseudo-ruler, Ancestor Sealing Saber, was killed. His divine body's energy was directly reduced to 0. Sealing Saber Ancestor's divine infant flew out in a panic, trying to escape. Lin Jun sneered. The lotus between his eyebrows flickered. His divine infant also flew out. Just like its master, it held a crystalline spear and stabbed Sealing Saber Ancestor's divine infant to death. The divine infant was destroyed. Wisps of his divine soul dissipated between heaven and earth. Once his divine soul completely dissipated, Sealing Saber Ancestor would completely disappear. He would never be able to revive. Lin Jun raised his hand. Astral winds descended from the heavens and quickly blew away Sealing Saber Ancestor's divine soul, cutting off his path of life forever. From beginning to end, only 2 seconds had passed. No one had a chance to rescue him. Chapter 13:16. Zixinghe and the others were dumbfounded. They didn't know how to react for a moment. In contrast to Zixinghe and the other surprise, Sunflower Scar, who was being hugged by Lin Jun, was in stark contrast. The woman looked at Lin Jun with a complicated gaze before pushing him away. Is this your way of atoning for your sins? She didn't seem very happy that she had escaped death because the situation in front of them was still very grim. The other party's patriarch Golden Rock had yet to make a move. Lin Jun laughed. Not really. More importantly, I can't go against my heart. Their actions have already exceeded my bottom line. I really couldn't tell that you were someone with a bottom line. Sunflower Scar's words were filled with mockery. It was obvious that her hatred for Lin Jun had not dissipated. However, she couldn't fall out with Lin Jun at this moment because Lin Jun was her only hope and support. Although this person was extremely hateful, she could still tell at this moment whether he was sincere or not. I also couldn't tell that Junior Brother was someone with a bottom line. As soon as Sunflower Scar's voice fell, Patriarch Golden Rock said the same thing. Patriarch Golden Rock walked onto the battlefield with a furious look on his face. Zixinghe and the others immediately came to Patriarch Golden Rock's side. Lin Jun was no longer reliable. Lin Jun shrugged. Compared to Senior Brother, I may not be a pure martial artist. I will do many things to achieve my goals, but there are some things that I can't do. I've really disappointed Senior Brother. Disappointing me is nothing. Junior Brother, you should be more worried that you won't be able to see Master again. Golden Rock raised his head and looked at the Eternal Mountain, which was advancing steadily. It had been less than 10 minutes since the Eternal Mountain arrived. Senior Brother, you don't have to worry about that. I am confident that such a day will come. The anger that Golden Rock had been suppressing finally exploded. Lin Jun, I treated you as my junior brother in vain, but you actually helped this slut. What benefits did this slut give you to make you do this? Lin Jun also sneered. Put away your hypocritical act. If you really want to know the reason, then I'll give you a reason. The moment you decided to use me to help you obtain the ruler's divine crystal, you were destined to fail. Because I, Lin Jun, will never work for anyone, nor will I submit to anyone, no matter who they are. If you want me to work for you, you're not worthy. This is the most fundamental reason. Good. I thought that this kind of complex would only appear in those rookies who have just stepped onto the martial path. Martial artists who have experienced many hardships would not have such childish thoughts. It seems that Junior Apprentice Brother's life has been too smooth these years. This is not conducive to growth. The Golden Rock suddenly grinned. Why don't you let me clean up the sect for you? You guys hold that woman back. The Golden Rock roared at Zi Xinghe and the others, then went berserk and charged at Lin Jun. He opened his hands, and a weapon appeared in his palms. It was a pair of golden wheels. One was like the sun, and the other was like the moon. The sun and moon golden wheels, Patriarch Golden Rock's pair of supreme-grade weapons. Although Lin Jun's words were arrogant, he had never underestimated the Golden Rock. Of all the people present, only the Golden Rock could truly threaten him. Even with Sunflower Scar's current strength, Lin Jun could still sense her upper limit. However, the Golden Rock's strength far exceeded Sunflower Scar's, so Lin Jun could not accurately sense it. An unfathomable enemy was the most terrifying. To be able to occupy the Divine Steel's first place for so long, Patriarch Golden Rock was definitely the strongest quasi-ruler. Lin Jun immediately went on the defensive with the bluestone spear in his hand. Immovable Mountain. Patriarch Golden Rock came forward like the wind, laughing loudly as his hair and beard danced. Immovable Mountain. It's a very good defensive technique, but Lin Jun, you're too naive. A real attack is won by speed. When your speed is completely behind mine, no matter how strong your defense is, it will still be defeated. Today, I'll let you experience true speed. The Sun Golden Wheel in his hand whistled through the air, bringing with it a bolt of lightning. Lin Jun raised his spear to defend. The enormous impact caused Lin Jun to be shocked. His opponent was holding a wheel with one hand, yet wasn't pushed back by his spear. This was too shocking. Even with one hand, he wasn't at a disadvantage. This meant that Patriarch Golden Rock's godly strength surpassed Lin Jun's by a bit. The instant their weapons clashed, the Moon Golden Wheel had already reached his chest. The spear trembled and blocked again. The Sun Golden Wheel came again. Speed, absolute speed. Attack speed of light. To be able to attack with absolute speed of light in a place like the Dark Light World, Lin Jun knew that this was something only dominators could do. Lin Jun's comprehension of speed was extremely profound. He had already grasped the true essence of light and thunder, the two extreme speed elements. He could also attack with the speed of light. But compared to Patriarch Golden Rock, Lin Jun had a fatal weakness. That was that the spear in his hand was only a weapon. But Patriarch Golden Rock's Sun Moon Golden Wheels were two weapons. When his left hand attacked at the speed of light, his right hand could also attack at the speed of light. Moreover, the angles were extremely tricky, as if he were facing two attacks at the same time. Lin Jun didn't have a problem defending against one. But facing two opponents with the same speed as him, his defense was immediately stretched thin. However, Lin Jun wasn't as weak as Patriarch Golden Rock had said. His immovable mountain martial intent had already reached the pinnacle of perfection. Lotus flowers bloomed on his body, blocking the gaps in his defense. He had an undying body to begin with. In addition to the Black Tortoise's defense and the Leech's powerful regenerative abilities, even Patriarch Golden Rock wouldn't be able to defeat Lin Jun in a short period of time. The battle between the two sent shockwaves through the air. Energy surged. No one dared to approach. On one side, Lin Jun and Patriarch Golden Rock were exchanging blows. On the other side, Zi Xinghe and the others were once again attacking Sunflower Scar. Whether they were willing or not, they were now tied to Patriarch Golden Rock. They had to join forces to deal with Lin Jun and Sunflower Scar. Although they had lost Patriarch Sealing Blade, the three of them were much more cautious. They cooperated with each other, advancing and retreating as one. Sunflower Scar couldn't do anything to them. The six of them had launched an unprecedented battle. This wasn't Fantasy Town. If you died, you wouldn't have the chance to start over. A battle between peak quasi-rulers shook the earth. The spectators had all retreated far away. No one had thought that the battle would suddenly turn to this point. Lin Jun and Sunflower Scar, this man and woman, had unexpectedly moved against Patriarch Golden Rock, who had ruled Fantasy Town for 10 billion years. Moreover, it was a battle of life and death. This battle would certainly change the situation of Fantasy Town. It would even affect who the future ruler would belong to. In the grand scheme of things, it would even affect the situation of the entire universe. In such a battle, no one else could intervene. If they recklessly intervened, only death would await them. Chapter 13:17. Compared to the stalemate on Sunflower Scar's side, the battle between Lin Jun and the Golden Rock was much more intense. The Golden Rock had been in Fantasy Town for 10 billion years, and his position had long been so stable that no one could shake it. Only Sunflower Scar, the proud daughter of heaven, had challenged him 3 times. However, Sunflower Scar still failed. After that, no one was qualified to challenge him. Today, Lin Jun's appearance made the Golden Rock feel that his position had been shaken. Lin Jun's defense was strong enough. Immovable Mountain was his first line of defense, and the strange protective lotus flower was his second line of defense. Even if the Golden Rock could hit him, the immemorial armor on his body and his incomparably tough skin and bones made it difficult for the Golden Rock to inflict serious injuries. His recovery and vitality were also very strong. He was almost a person with no weaknesses. The continuous attacks achieved some results, but it was unable to end the battle. The Golden Rock waved his hands a few times, forcing Lin Jun to stop attacking. Then he suddenly jumped out. Hee. As expected of teacher's disciple, your skills are simply impeccable. Lin Jun had several wounds on his body that were rapidly recovering. Hearing the Golden Rock's words, he smiled. Thank you for the praise, senior brother. Lin Jun, don't be complacent. Don't think that you can fight me with just a strong defense. You should know that no matter how strong your defense is, it will still collapse under a violent attack. Don't tell me you've forgotten teacher's secret technique. Lin Jun's expression changed slightly. He knew that the real battle was coming. Immovable Mountain could defend, but the Golden Rock had a way to launch a stronger attack, and that was the overlay technique. The overlay technique was not exclusive to Lin Jun. All members of the Lone Star clan were proficient in this ability. Even the first powerful enemy that Lin Jun encountered in the town and suffered his first defeat was proficient in the overlay technique. Needless to say, the Golden Rock was proficient in the overlay technique. The Golden Rock separated the golden wheels in his hands. The overlay technique was created to increase attack power. It focuses on instantaneous eruption of power that surpasses normal. However, it cannot be used on defense. With teacher's ability, your defense is doomed to collapse. Lin Jun, idiot, you should have thought of this when you went against me, but it's too late now. Let's see how many of my moves you can take. Die. The Golden Rock attacked again. The power of the Sun Golden Wheel in his hand chopped down Mount Hua. Akala Seal. The Golden Rock was also using a sovereign battle technique. When combined with the overlay battle technique, it instantly unleashed a tremendous amount of power. Lin Jun held his spear horizontally to block. Previously, he had a slight advantage when facing the Golden Rock, but this time, he was at a disadvantage. His feet, which were as immovable as a mountain, finally began to shake in the face of his opponent's powerful impact. Ha ha! You can't even block the first move. Let's see what you're going to do next. The Moon Golden Wheel followed suit and once again attacked at the speed of light, unleashing the Great Vajra Wheel Seal. Space trembled under the attack of the Golden Wheel. Lin Jun once again blocked with a spear, but a powerful force surged forth, causing him to stagger back a few steps. Immovable Mountain had been broken. Not good. If this continues, I'll be defeated. No matter how strong my body's defense is, I won't be able to withstand a direct attack from a peerless expert like the Golden Rock. Facing the Golden Rock pouncing at him again, Lin Jun retreated and decided to engage in a skirmish battle. Lin Jun had the genes of a light-chasing beast, so his retreating speed was also very fast. He planned to open up space and then counterattack with his spear, hoping to recover his disadvantage. However, he never expected that his speed would not be enough to shake off the Golden Rock. A pair of huge wings suddenly appeared behind the Golden Rock. Under the propulsion of the wings, the Golden Rock followed closely behind like a shadow. In the blink of an eye, the sun golden wheel attacked again. Idiot! My original body is a kuenpung, a fish and a bird. My innate speed has reached the limit of a galactic beast. In half a second, I can reach 180,000 kilometers. In 1 second, my absolute speed can even exceed the speed of light. How are you going to shake me off? Clang! A huge collision sound rang out. The Golden Rock's sun golden wheel carried the power of the lion seal and ruthlessly smashed into Lin Jun's chest. Lin Jun's chest tightened, and for the first time in a battle, he lost control of his body and spun out. Lin Jun knew that he had made a mistake. He should not have let the Golden Rock make the first move. The Golden Rock's speed, strength, and godly strength were not inferior to him in any of these three aspects. Coupled with the superposition battle technique, it would be too difficult to counterattack if the Golden Rock took the first move. However, it was too late to think about this now. Lin Jun had to block the Golden Rock's continuous attacks before he could have a chance to counterattack. However, the Golden Rock was also very clear about this. He believed that Lin Jun definitely had a way to counterattack, and he would definitely not give Lin Jun the chance to do so. Junior brother, your footing is unstable, so you won't have a chance to counterattack. Stop struggling and accept your fate. Inner Lion Seal. The Moon Golden Wheel attacked again like a ghost, not giving Lin Jun a chance to teleport. Under such a powerful attack, Lin Jun could not even activate the Law of Time's field. He could not catch his breath and was in an extremely difficult situation. A fourfold superposition attack ruthlessly attacked. This time, Lin Jun finally could not hold on any longer. The Azure Stone's spear blocked again, but the arm holding the spear felt sore. It was as if a star moving at the speed of light had smashed into his shoulder. His arm went soft, and the Moon Golden Wheel took advantage of this situation to descend. Pooh! In this battle, Lin Jun suffered a serious injury for the first time. From his shoulder to his abdomen, a wound that cut across half his body appeared under the Moon Golden Wheel. The massive energy of his divine body had been depleted by 20% under this attack. You can't take a fourfold superposition, right? Let's try a fivefold superposition outer binding seal. As the Golden Rock spoke, the Sun Golden Wheel attacked again without any pause. His positioning was also extremely outstanding. With a single step, he arrived in front of the retreating Lin Jun, not giving Lin Jun any chance to catch his breath. Lin Jun knew that the critical moment had come. He used all of his strength to block, and the primal Chaos Green Lotus also bloomed at this time. However, it still could not block the Golden Rock's fivefold superposition attack. The green lotus petals flew and withered. The Sun Golden Wheel caused even more damage than the Moon Golden Wheel. An even bigger wound appeared. This time, the energy of his divine body had been depleted by 35%. His body continued to fly backwards. The Golden Rock took a step in the air and appeared beside Lin Jun again. This kind of ghostly speed was not inferior to teleportation in a short-distance battle. This was also the reason why the Golden Rock was able to maintain the first place of the Divine Steel for so many years. Like Lin Jun, he was also a martial artist with almost no weaknesses. Even in the aspect of mental strength, Lin Jun and the Golden Rock were about the same. Moreover, the Golden Rock's understanding of battle was also very strong. He knew the profoundness of taking advantage of the opponent's weakness. If his attack succeeded, it would be fatal. Junior apprentice brother, it's over. Have a taste of my six-fold superposition. Inner binding seal. The Moon Golden Wheel once again drew a mysterious trajectory as it attacked with a six-fold superposition. This kind of continuous fierce attack was also a huge drain on the Golden Rock's body. In fact, he had almost reached the peak of his strength. However, he was very confident that when he needed to catch his breath and rest, he would definitely be able to finish off Lin Jun.